In Stardew Valley, you're given loads of space to build your farm however you want, but this is Tiny Farm. You barely have any room to work with, which means no room for crops or buildings. Over the next 300 days, I tried to turn the smallest farm possible into something that could take me all the way to perfection. So, welcome back everyone. In this video, you're watching the entire journey that spanned over 3 different videos in one single movie. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out a lot. But without further delay, grab some popcorn and let's do this. One day I decided that sitting behind a desk was too much for me, and I chose to take up my grandpa's offer on becoming my very own farmer. I could only imagine the vast lands where I could grow thousands of crops and house thousands of animals. Oh damn. This time I'll be spending the next 100 days in the smallest farm in Stardew Valley, with the eventual goal of the series being perfection, and of course becoming a millionaire. It turns out that there was a huge mistake in the paperwork and Grandpa was actually broke, and his farm was tiny. Which is exactly how it's described in the mod description, which was just super funny to read. Let's see how we do with only a tiny space to work with. As soon as I stepped off the bus, I finally realised that Grandpa wasn't the man I had remembered from my childhood, and he had sold me a complete lie. This land here is exactly what I have to grow crops, build barns, and pretty much everything else. I made sure to clear out as much debris as I could, and chopped only a couple trees before planting my parsnips. I didn't have the energy to water them all, which was already my first mistake. But I did make myself a quick chest to store all of my items, whilst I explored the rest of the town. I picked up some kale seeds from Pierre, and Marnie caught me digging through the garbage, which definitely didn't help my reputation at the moment. Luckily, there were a bunch of wild spring onions laying around, which allowed me to head back home, if you can even call it a home, and finish off watering my crops. Overnight, I made it to level 1 foraging, and proceeded to water the remainder of the crops. In typical day 2 fashion, I picked up the old rod from Willie, and begun fishing in the ocean. I then proceeded to spend the entire rest of the day up at the mountain lake doing more fishing. Over the next few weeks, I'm trying to stay as far away from my farm as possible, in order to not make the townsfolk think I'm poor, and in all honesty, there was so little room on the farm I could barely breathe anyway. Passing out, I made it all the way to fishing level 3 and planted some carrot seeds. Luckily it was raining today, which would save me watering my crops. Rain also meant I could catch the catfish today, which I made sure to do this morning. I would need a catfish to donate to the community centre, as well as an eel, so I also got that today. Dropping them all back home, I spent the remainder of day 3 back up the mountain lake doing more fishing. The rain had passed overnight and I was back to watering the crops before rushing down to Willie's to sell all of my catfish for 2.6 thousand gold, giving me enough to buy the fiberglass fishing pole. And I'm really sorry if fishing is boring, but I did spend another whole day at the mountain lake, fishing, although I did call it early in the evening. But luckily day 5 was much more exciting, as today was the first day of the mines opening up. But before then, my worst fear happened. A local villager had found their way onto my tiny land, and my entire anonymous life has now been ruined, filled and complete with utter embarrassment. I told the strange woman to leave her cat behind and get off my land. That was weird. Anyway, my parsnips are ready to collect, which would prove to be great energy inside the mines. Before then, I did read the plaque inside the abandoned community centre, as that was going to be my preferred path for this series. Since the entire village is now going to be gossiping about me behind my back, I thought they will forget all about my tiny little farm once they see I single-handedly restored the community centre. Inside Pierre's, I purchased the backpack upgrade and dove straight into the mines. It turned out to be such a great day and I managed to reach floor 20, and I've begun smelting a bunch of copper bars. For now, I could place my chest and furnaces just here, but once we start getting barns and coops, we need to be more cleverer on where to put things. I had some carrots ready to collect today, and I also ventured across the entire valley to forage for even more spring onions, and enough forage to complete the spring foraging bundle, which unlocked even more bundles to complete. Back at Pierre's, I bought a bunch more kale, a potato, and a green bean seed, and opened up a load more geodes at Clint's, which gave me enough gold to send off my pickaxe for an upgrade to copper. I had some very large and outright annoying boulders on my farm, which I couldn't remove until I had a steel pickaxe, so getting the upgrades early will be essential to maximise my tiny farm space. Back on the farm, the crop space was already taking up so much, so I became worried on how I was expected to build both a barn and a coop here. And that still doesn't equate for other things like silos, the 4 obelisks, and even a slime hutch. There's no way it's all getting in here. And is something missing? I don't know, it just feels off. Anyway, the remainder of the day was spent chopping down trees in the Cindersap forest and starting to create my very own tree farm. I wasn't sure why I chose to create a tree farm here, as I clearly don't have the room for it. I wasn't too bothered about my chests for now. They were in a good place, and since they were on tiles that weren't tillable, it didn't really matter. And finally, a big trip to the community centre to donate a bunch more fish, making good progress in the fish tank bundle. Overnight I did make it to level 2 farming, which was a nice bonus, and unlocked the crafting recipe for the sprinklers. The first batch of kale was ready today, and whilst I checked out the travelling cart, I chose to use the chair to access the secret woods in order to catch myself the wood skip. And for some strange reason, I decided to give myself even more watering to do by buying 15 more kale seeds, which did begin to take up a large portion of the farm now. My pickaxe had finally made it to copper, which meant I could return to the mines today to get even further down. It was a late night, but I did manage to make it all the way to floor 35 before rushing back home before I passed out. The next morning we had a lot more watering to do, but hopefully this will all be worth it when I manage to get some sprinklers set up. Yet again, day 9 was spent inside the mines, making it to floor 55 before I continued to reset floor 41 to get as much iron and coal as possible. And one more day inside the mines today. The lack of space on the farm meant I would have barely any space to grow crops until I unlocked either the quarry or Ginger Island, so completing the community centre is current mission number 1. By the end of day 10, I made it to floor 70, meaning that there was only 10 more floors until the lava levels. Day 11 started with a trip to the museum to donate a few more artefacts I had collected over the course of a few days. Then once Clint's opened, I opened all of my geodes and donated a bunch more artefacts. Since it was raining again today, I decided to spend the entire day fishing in the river in order to catch as many catfish as I could, which do sell for quite a bit of gold. I had a bunch more kale ready today, alongside a load more watering. Today I had the hopes to get even further down in the mines before I send off my pickaxe for another upgrade to steel. And by 3:30 I had reached level 80, and then floor 90 just after 10 PM, which was a super great day for progression. Day 13 started by smelting even more bars and collecting the rest of my kale, leveling me up in farming. I chose to ship off all of the kale, and I crafted up 9 sprinklers to start automating all of the watering. Of course I didn't do too much today, as it was the day of the annual egg festival. Whilst here I purchased 17 strawberry seeds to plant back home, and it was also an event where me, a grown person, participates in a children's egg hunt, and I won it easily. Am I embarrassed? Absolutely not. Overnight I leveled up in farming, which was a nice bonus, but by day 14 it officially marks the halfway stage of the spring season, and in all honesty, the lack of space hasn't really given me that many problems. If only I knew what lay ahead. First stop of the day was Clint's, where I sent off my pickaxe for an upgrade to steel, which left me on exactly 0 gold. With the lack of a pickaxe, I chose to do work on foraging today, by chopping down as many trees as I could in the Cindersap forest and collecting any forage I found along the way. I did also find Robin's lost axe, which I hope to give her back soon. Due to the lack of energy, I chose to sleep in early today, which brings us to day 15, which begun with a trip to the community centre to drop off a bunch more items, and it was also salmon berry season, which can provide me with a load of berries to replenish my energy inside the mines. The next trip, however, was Robin's, where I returned her lost axe to her, and she gave me 250 gold as a reward. Once again, I didn't have a pickaxe, which meant I spent the day back in the Cindersap forest, collecting as many salmon berries as I could, and chopping as many trees as I could, and in the end getting 55 in total. Day 16 was the day of my new steel pickaxe, which allowed me to reach floor 100 inside the mines, and allowed me to get my very first star drop of the small farm series. In regards to the rest of the day, I reset floor 21 for as much copper as I could whilst I smelted ores on the surface. Day 17 I was back at Clint's to open more geodes and also to sell enough quartz to afford to send off my axe for an upgrade to copper. Getting these tool upgrades done early will make the rest of the series much easier for me. After a few days of chopping trees, I had enough wood to repair the bridge on the beach to collect the forage that lay across there. And the rest of the day was spent fishing at the mountain lake. I didn't really need the gold at this point, but I really wanted to reach level 6 fishing to unlock the bait maker, which I managed to get overnight. I had a load of cauliflowers to collect today, which was a nice bonus, and my strawberries were coming along quite well. I was determined to reach the bottom of the mines today, which I managed to do in the late evening, and obviously collected the skull key. Since I can't really make a lot of gold from growing crops now, I will be using the skull caverns to make as much money as possible. I'll explain more later. My green bean plant was ready today, which meant I could donate a load more items inside the community centre. It begins by completing the spring crops bundle, which unlocked even more bundles. And in these bundles was the boiler room, which I already had everything ready to fully complete it. This will unlock the mine carts, which will make traversing the map much easier from now. At Clint's I picked up my copper axe and opened up again more geodes. And any new artifacts I got I donated straight to the museum. I would still need a steel axe to properly access the secret woods, but I could still chop the smaller stumps in here for enough hardwood in order to take 10 pieces of it to complete the construction bundle. I took the rest of the day to fish at the mountain lake again with the bait maker this time to catch a bunch of bullheads, since they do offer great levels of experience. Of course, overnight I watched the Junimos repair the minecarts, which means we're on day 20. I was shocked to see another human had visited my farm today, and it was Demetrius, offering to house mushrooms or bats inside the cave. I decided to go with fruit bats to help me progress the community centre a tiny bit easier. I was once again back at Clint's to send off my hoe to copper, before chopping down a bunch more trees inside the Cindersap forest until my energy levels were pretty much zero. It was a great day today, as it marked the first harvest of my strawberries, which was enough to level me up in the farming skill. I have been checking out the travelling cart every single Friday and Sunday, but the reason I haven't mentioned it is it's not giving me anything. I sold everything at Pierre's and really contemplated buying the backpack upgrade for only 10,000 gold, but I chose to buy a whole load of kale instead, which would be fine until I realised I had just sent off my hoe for an upgrade. So, in order to plant them, I had to bomb the ground. So yeah, that was pretty stupid. The rain had returned today, which meant a whole day of fishing for catfish in the river. Although this time, I could use the bait maker to get a load more than usual. Late into the day, I went behind the bookseller to get one more prize ticket, which granted me 12 carrot seeds. And overnight I snuck in level 7 fishing. Unfortunately, after buying so much kale yesterday, I had to spend a lot of energy this morning watering, but it wasn't all bad since my hoe had finished upgrading to copper. I then sent off my axe straight away for an upgrade to steel, and then returned to Pierre's to sell enough salmon berries to afford the final backpack upgrade. After a few hours of farming copper on the lower levels of the mines, I managed to find myself my first ancient seed, which I took straight to the museum to collect my first ancient seed packet. I would need to set up a large farm of these on Ginger Island later into the series, so yeah, humble beginnings I guess. And the remainder of the day was spent farming iron and coal on the frozen levels. Day 24 began with a bunch of watering, but also marks the day of the flower dance. Of course, considering the town completely hates me, as I'm the loser with the smallest farm in the world, every single person rejected me, and I had to stand and watch from the sidelines. For some reason I got the message, that was a fun time to head home. No it wasn't. Day 25 was the second and final harvest of my strawberries, which leveled me up in farming again, and I made a trip to the community centre to drop off a few more items I had collected over the past week. I sold everything at Pierre's and picked up my new steel axe, and chose to send off my hoe for its second upgrade to steel. I would have loved to upgrade my watering can this season, but since I had bought so much kale, I couldn't afford to lose it for 2 days. With my new axe I could finally access the secret woods the intended way, and collect a load more hardwood. I also found this strange crow which sold some paintings. That was interesting. Never seen this before. And the remainder of the day was spent foraging and chopping even more trees. More watering yet again today, this is getting boring, but I did have 12 more carrots ready to collect. At the travelling cart I purchased a cactus fruit, which was one of the items needed to complete the exotic foraging bundle, which gave me 5 autumn bounties. Quite boringly, I was back into the mines to farm even more copper and iron, and made up some crab pots to help me collect the remainder of the items for the crab pot bundle. And overnight I managed to sneak in level 6 foraging. Thankfully there's no more watering now, as the kale had finally grown, leveling me up in farming. I did also remember to access this secret area in order to collect the alleyway buffet book, which increases the chance of finding items in the trash. I picked up my new hoe and sold everything at Pierre's before donating the final items to complete the crab pot bundle, which gave me 3 crab pots as a reward. For the first time I checked out the farm cave, giving me a few more items. But here we are, the final day of the spring season, and my gosh has this gone so fast. And in all honesty, I'm ready to go into summer now. The day started with a trip to the travelling cart, and once again get nothing. In order to send off the spring season, I decided to make a big purchase today, building myself a new coop, which somehow just squeezed into this tiny area on the farm. Which was kind of perfect, to be honest, since they weren't tillable spots. Don't ask me where I'm going to put the barn, but I did make sure to smelt some refined quartz to make some quality sprinklers, which means next season I shouldn't have to do any watering, which means I can finally sneak in some pesky watering can upgrades. In the end, this is how many I got down, plenty of room for loads of summer crops. I did decide to move my furnaces and chests down to this small little alley down the side of the house. That way I can lay some nice paths down the entire farm. And in the end I did sell a bunch of items in order to fund my summer seeds, and I went to bed ending the spring season inside Tiny Farm. So here we are, the start of my first summer season inside Tiny Farm, and we have so much to do this season. It was nice to see Robin hard at work building my new coop, and I had a load of debris and withered crops to clear out this morning. I made sure to plant my singular ancient seed plant today, alongside the starfruit and summer squashes I had acquired over the last couple days. I then eagerly waited outside Pierre's to purchase myself a tomato seed, pepper, and some blueberries and melons. It didn't take me too long to get them all planted and watered into the ground, before wandering around the valley to try and find all of this new season's forage, which I could take to the community centre to complete the summer foraging bundle, getting even more summer seeds to plant. To wrap up such a busy day, I went to the ocean to catch some new fish, such as the red mullet and tuna. On to day 30, since I finally had an entirely automated watering system now, I could take my watering can off to Clint's to upgrade it straight to copper. Then I was off to the mountain lake to catch myself the sturgeon, for the lake fishing bundle of course, allowing me to fully complete it. It had been a while since I sat down and did some fishing, so I decided to spend the entire day up here. I was running some errands on day 31, which started in the Cindersap forest to chop some more trees down, and then straight to Marnie's to buy myself some chickens to move into my newly constructed coop. Another issue of Tiny Farm would be hay. Since I wouldn't have the room to grow grass anymore, I would have to spend quite a lot of gold on it from Marnie's, which became quite annoying. Then I was back up at the mountain lake to fish even more. This time I was using the bait maker to exclusively catch largemouth bass, which can sell for a decent amount of gold. And overnight I made it to level 8 fishing with just over 4,000 gold. I started the day by spending 2,000 gold inside the community centre in the vault bundle, before picking up my new copper watering can from Clint's. Then I'm back to fishing for largemouth bass in the mountain lake. I should probably tell you why I'm even doing this, and it's quite simple. I need the gold. I had hopes to get enough gold to finish the vault bundle and access the skull caverns as early as possible, which will be a huge upgrade for us, giving us access to iridium ore and other great rewards as well. I didn't have any plan to sell the fish right now, that was until I reached level 10 fishing, which will make my fish worth 50% more. I did manage to find a dinosaur egg inside a treasure chest, although I won't be donating it straight to the museum. I will incubate it instead, to get my very own baby dinosaur. It was raining on day 33, and I was straight over to the travelling car for it to be disappointing once again. I then dropped off another artefact to the museum, before fishing in the ocean to catch the red snapper, which was all I needed to finish yet another bundle inside the fish tank. The remainder of the day was spent in the frozen levels of the mines to farm even more iron, and also slay a few more dust sprites. If I can slay 500 of them, I can get one of the best rings in the game, the burglar's ring. And I did manage to reach level 7 mining overnight. Day 34, I was inside the farm cave to collect a bunch more fruits to donate to the community centre. At Clint's, I dropped off my watering can for another upgrade, this time into steel. Then to level 20 in the mines to try and catch the ghost fish. And overnight I managed to make it to level 9 fishing. I did my daily chores this morning of collecting eggs and petting my chickens, before checking out the travelling cart to buy nothing once again. Then I took out my anger on some trees in the Cindersap forest and the stumps in the secret woods. It was a quite slow day today, and I wrapped it up sorting my chest out late into the evening and finding any more items I could donate to the community centre, which I dropped off before rushing into bed. Day 36 starts the new week, and I was straight to Willie's to change my bobber to a little rubber duck. But the real reason I was here was to buy the iridium rod and a couple of dress spinners, which will speed up the fish biting. I decided to construct myself a silo in order to store all of my hay, which I don't have of course, so I'm not sure why I did this, and to be honest there wasn't even much room for it, and every time I build something, the farm gets smaller and smaller. The entire day was spent up at the mountain lake, yet again for more largemouth bass, even passing out at 2 AM. I didn't reach level 10 fishing today, which wasn't too much of a problem since I was still a distance away anyway, from having enough for the vault bundle. I'm not going to keep on boring you today, but day 37 was once again spent fishing at the mountain lake, and I did reach level 10 fishing overnight, allowing my fish to be worth 50% more. And in the morning, I had made 18,000 gold, which was quite good. But after 3 days of fishing, I had hoped I'd be closer to 40 by now. But I did spend the entire day fishing once again. This time I could get a lot of iridium quality catches, which sell for drastically more gold, which on day 39 put me on 25,000 gold. Of course, day 11 of summer is the luau. Before then, I spent 25,000 gold inside the vault bundle, which left only the 10,000 gold one and the 5,000 gold one. I did also receive a crystallarium as a reward, which will be useful when I duplicate jades for staircases. Once I unlock the bus to the desert, of course. I didn't really have a good item for the soup, but an iridium quality largemouth bass still went down well with the governor, which marked a successful luau. Day 40 I was jump scared by my melons, as I had thought they were all fully grown today, which they hadn't, so that was stupid. Once again the travelling cart was absolute garbage, and seeing how close I was to finishing the vault bundle now, I just had to spend the entire day fishing for largemouth bass again, and in the end I made another 10,000 gold. The rain was back again today, but I was glad to see that my melons actually finished growing this time, giving me over 80 of them, levelling me up in farming in the process. At the community centre, I dropped off some summer crops and sold a whole load of melons at Pierre's. That gave me enough gold to finish the vault bundle inside the community centre. That means tomorrow I'll be able to travel to the desert. Since I had the gold, I chose to spend it on a second coop upgrade, and I spent the remainder of it on even more melon seeds, which if I planted today, I'd be able to get one more harvest out of. Excitedly overnight I watched the Junimos repair the bus to the desert, which was super exciting, and I also snuck in level 7 farming. My blueberries were ready to collect on the day of day 42, giving me all I needed to complete the summer crops bundle, and I did also buy a red cabbage from the travelling cart, which was quite nice. I couldn't wait to travel to the desert today, so I sped up Pam to get there even quicker. First stop was the Oasis to meet Sandy, and then to the Desert Trader to get 4 staircases. But more importantly, I was here for the Skull Caverns. Since I only had a steel pickaxe, I had to use all of my iron and coal I got from farming the frozen levels to make 60 bombs, which should make up for it. In the end, it was a great run, managing to get a prismatic shard, nearly 100 iridium ore, and even a rabbit's foot, making it to floor 101. I did make sure to leave a tiny bit early today, so I had enough time to trade my prismatic shard in to get the galaxy sword, which is one of the best weapons in the game of course. Before I left, I traded any rubies and diamonds I had for some spicy eels and triple shot espressos, and some omni geodes for desert warp totems. This will make travelling to the desert much easier. I did also reach level 8 mining overnight, and a few more Skull Caverns runs should get me to level 10 mining easy. Day 43 was the annual Green Rain event, and usually I would spend it collecting as much mixed seeds and fibres as possible, but I chose not to this time, and instead chose to return to the Skull Caverns. And it was a good run, managing to find myself an auto grabber in a treasure room, which I could add to the coop alongside over 100 iridium ore again. I mentioned before how getting to the Skull Caverns was going to be my main moneymaker this series. Well, that's because of iridium bars. Since I could get so much iridium in the Skull Caverns, way more than I would probably ever need, I could instead smelt the bars and sell them for 1.5 thousand gold apiece after level 10 mining of course. And overnight I made it to level 9 mining and level 7 combat. Emily was at my door this morning letting me know that I can use her sewing machine whenever I wanted after finding some cloth yesterday in the Skull Caverns. On day 44 I received 10,000 gold from Mr. Key after reaching at least floor 25 yesterday, and I could finally incubate my dinosaur egg inside the newly upgraded coop. I then donated a lot more items such as the rabbit's foot and red cabbage to the community centre. Since I had the gold, I decided to send my pickaxe for an upgrade to gold, and opened up a bunch more geodes and donated any new artifacts I could find. I'm back at the ocean today to try and catch the pufferfish, which I need for the specialty fish bundle, and then I was to the desert to catch the sandfish, allowing me to complete it fully. We lose the footage for day 45 and day 46, but I spent day 45 chopping trees, and day 46 I did another Skull Caverns run, managing to reach level 10 mining and selling a bunch of iridium bars overnight, which now sell for 50% more, courtesy of level 10 mining. This puts us on to day 47, which we start on 26,000 gold. I decided to spend 20,000 gold on the final coop upgrade, and also buy the recipe for the big chest, which will be super useful at this point considering I don't have a lot of room for storage. I did pick up a help wanted quest which told me to slay 5 lava crabs, which I quickly ticked off today, allowing me to collect a prize ticket from Demetrius. This time I received a peach sapling, which I don't have the room to plant right now, but maybe inside the greenhouse or on Ginger Island. Day 48 was the day of the trout derby, so I took my bait maker to catch as many as possible. And in the afternoon I picked up my new gold axe, which I used to chop loads of trees in the Cindersap forest. Day 49, I chose to buy a rare seed from the travelling cart, but accidentally purchased a totem pole, which was super annoying. Since it was a Sunday, I could trade some jades which I've been duplicating inside the crystallariums for staircases at the desert trader. I also had a load of omni geodes from my travels, which I could open at Clint's to give me a load of new artifacts I could donate straight to the museum. Back home, I decided to ship off any items I didn't really need in order to raise some gold for some plans I have coming up. We did have some blueberries ready to pick today, and also some eggs ready from inside the coop. As soon as Clint's opened, I sent off my hoe for an upgrade to copper, and warped straight over to the desert to trade some iridium ore for some mega bombs. I know there's probably better things I can be doing with iridium ore, but this will help me get even further down inside the skull caverns. This time, I had some spicy eels to increase my luck. It was yet another great run with nearly 200 iridium ore, and I also found a nice cowboy hat on floor 100, and quickly warped home with a lot of useful items, with even a seed maker and crystallarium. Overnight I did reach level 8 farming, level 8 combat, and level 8 foraging, which was nice. Day 51 I collected a bottle of wine from my keg in order to complete the Enchanter's bundle from inside the community centre, and I went to try my luck catching this season's legendary fish, the Crimson Fish, which didn't actually take me that long to get. Day 52 I collected even more bars that I've been smelting overnight. Since I have so much ore from the Skull Caverns, I'm trying to smelt as often and as much as I can. I did buy some more hay this morning since I was running out, which is always super painful, but if I wanted to keep the animals happy, this is what I had to do. At Clint's my hoe was ready to collect, and I sent off my watering can for an upgrade to gold, and also gave Jody an emerald to wrap up a help wanted quest. I decided to turn some oak resin, copper, iron and wood into some kegs. Even though I don't have a lot of them right now, I'll be needing loads of them for perfection. For now though, I began placing them inside the house. I was delighted to see that on day 53 I had another large harvest of melons, which came at the perfect time since I was quite low on gold at the moment. I did remember to donate 5 gold star quality melons to the community centre, getting me one step closer to unlocking the greenhouse, which will be such a huge boost for us. George had requested a hot pepper, which I promptly gave him this morning. After selling all the melons at Pierre's, I chose to buy a whole load of wheat seeds to replace them. I wasn't sure whether it was too late to plant them, but we'll see I guess. I did try and build myself a barn, but there was literally no room for it at the moment, even after moving some other buildings around. The Friday marks the final blueberry harvest of the season, and at the travelling cart I did buy myself a rare seed this time, and picked up my golden watering can. Even though it was late, I chose to head off to the Skull Caverns to get even more iridium to sell, and anything else whilst I was here. At Marnie's I bought myself a white chicken and also a rabbit. I really wanted to finish the community centre fast, so I chose to mine out a load of wheat and farming space in order to build myself a barn. Now it's going to start getting crammed. In order to replenish my wood storage, I chose to chop down every tree I could find. What was lucky that overnight I was visited by the crop fairy, which instantly grew a load of wheat on the final day of the season. Day 56 I had a baby dinosaur finally hatch inside the coop, and also a load of wheat to collect courtesy of the crop fairy. At the travelling cart I bought one more rare seed and also a foraging book for some reason. I don't know why I bought this. Since it was a Sunday, I took the bus to the desert to trade some more staircases and any other items I had. After dropping 10 pieces of wheat to the fodder bundle, I headed down to the beach to enjoy the dance of the moonlight jellies. And as tradition in every single Stardew Valley series, let's just listen and enjoy. Of course, the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies signals the end of the summer season, and here we are, day 57 marks the start of my favourite season in all of Stardew Valley, the fall. It was nice to see that the wheat I had planted had lasted overnight, allowing me to collect it without wasting anything. It was also the first day of my ancient fruit harvest, which will be turning straight into seeds again, and eventually turning my entire Ginger Island farm into purely ancient fruit. I planted the 2 rare seeds, alongside some pumpkin seeds I had laying around from the museum, before rushing off to Pierre's to buy even more full seeds. The seeds didn't take too long to plant and water, considering I now have a golden watering can and golden hoe. Linus gave me a prize ticket in exchange for a wild plum, which was awfully kind of him. One of the final fish I needed was the tiger trout, which I caught right away, completing the river fishing bundle. The final fish I needed for the fish tank was the walleye. Overnight I made it to level 9 farming, closing in on level 10. Day 58 I see that Robin is still hard at work on my barn, and then she magically appeared in town, saying her and Lewis had put up this special orders board overnight. But if you're working on my barn, how could you put up the board at the same time? Today, I spent some time inside the frozen levels of the mines to farm more iron and coal in order to make as many bombs as possible. And whilst I was down here, I'm also working towards the burglar's ring. And not just that, but I also had my first special order, which tasked me to slay 50 dust sprites, so it all kind of worked out today. In the evening, I made sure to hand Penny a birthday emerald, upping her to 2 hearts, and caught the seasonal legendary fish, the angler, in the river. I'm delighted to see that on day 59 Robin had finished my new barn, and Clint had sent me the crafting recipe for the geode crusher for completing his special order yesterday. And I didn't waste any time and bought myself a cow to move in, amongst other tasks. That's all I really did today. Day 60 I really started to feel claustrophobic now, after the cows began to walk all over my farm. I cannot wait until I can move things elsewhere, such as the quarry or on Ginger Island. I chose to sell a load of iridium bars at Clint's in order to afford the next barn upgrade. And I returned to the desert to chop all of the trees and collect any forage that lay here. I did forget to mention, I did start a small tree farm here in the desert, as I really had no other place for one. And I would need oak resin for kegs somehow, you know. Using a cookout kit, I'd made myself a fried egg and the Mackie roll, which was needed for the chef's bundle. Day 61, I was back inside the Skull Caverns for another great run. Skipping over to day 62, it started at Clint's to sell even more iridium bars to afford the final barn upgrade. This will mean I can get pigs for that annoying truffle. I did also plant some mahogany seeds and covered them in tree fertilizer to get some more hardwood, and I'll be needing at least 200 of it to fix the boat to Ginger Island. In relation to artifacts, on day 63, Gunther is at my door giving me the rusty key, which I can use to access the sewers. But before then, I waited outside Marnie's to buy myself a goat. I then entered the sewers and met with Crowbus, much earlier than intended, which was quite cool. In tradition, every Sunday, I returned to the desert to trade in some diamonds, rubies and jades, and chopped any trees that had grown there. Day 64 started with a bunch of cranberries, which will slowly boost my gold total, although my empire of iridium bars should give me way more than I need. Fall 8 is the start of blackberry season, which, well, I'll be participating in, as each bush can give you up to 3 blackberries, due to me having such a high foraging level. Linus did lose his blackberry basket, which I returned to him, before I ended up stealing all of the blackberries across Cindersap Forest before he could get any. The special order for this week was Juicy Bugs Wanted, but that would have to wait until later, as I wanted to find as many blackberries as I could. And in the end, I managed to find 72 of them. And then I did finally head back to the mines to try and farm for the bug meat. I didn't manage to get all 100 pieces, meaning I would have to return tomorrow. Day 65, I decided to zoom all the way out to collect even more blackberries before returning to get the final pieces of bug meat, which made for a very boring day. My rabbit had produced a piece of wool this morning, which was another item I could donate to the animal bundle, which means I only need the large milk and the large goat milk, or a large egg. Then off to Willie's to drop off the 100 pieces of bug meat to wrap up his special order. The next prize ticket was a Star Drop tea, which made for a good gift for someone's birthday. My new barn had finally finished, which meant I could head to Marnie's and buy myself a pig. And after it starts maturing, I can start collecting truffles. Over at Clint's, I decided to finally send off my pickaxe for its final upgrade to iridium, and yet again I went around collecting blackberries and chopping more trees, hoping to level up in foraging. Back to smelting more ores on day 67, followed by a cutscene with Willie explaining how he is super happy with all the bug meat I collected for him last week, and that it works super well as bait. And yet again, even more blackberry collecting today, followed by even more smelting and even more cake crafting. Day 68 I was outside of Marnie's to buy even more hay since I had ran out once again. Gosh, this is just super annoying. I hate buying hay, I feel like it's such a waste. My pickaxe had finally finished upgrading to iridium, and I did sell off a few more bars in order to afford a Combat Quarterly book and a prize catalogue from the bookseller. I can trade in the Combat Quarterly book for some monster musk, which always comes in handy. So handy in fact, I used it right away to farm even more dust sprites in the frozen levels of the mines. I did spend the entire day in here getting over 65 pieces of coal, but even closer to that infamous burglar's ring. We're on day 69, it began with some cranberries and also some mahogany seeds ready to chop down, but since this was the first day of rain this season, I'd finally be able to catch the walleye, which did take me into the afternoon to get, but that meant I could complete my third room inside the community centre, and the glittering boulder will be removed overnight. Day 17 was the day of my pumpkin harvest, and even more mahogany trees were ready to cut down. I did remember to drop off 5 gold star quality ones at the community centre, alongside one for the full crops bundle. I did pick up my new copper pan from Willy today, which I sent straight off for an upgrade to steel, and yet again traded for even more staircases at the Desert Trader. Day 71 marks the new week in the fall season, and I had yet another ancient fruit ready to collect, which I could turn into more ancient seeds. I could also complete the full crops bundle today, giving me a free beehive. The new week special order was from Emily. It was Emily's rock rejuvenation, so I made sure to collect all the gems and drop them off at her house. But before then, I moved some buildings around to make things a bit easier to navigate for the farm. I did forget to give the gems to Emily today and chose to go straight to bed. Unfortunately, I couldn't give them to her today either, as Fall 16 is the day of the Stardew Valley Fair, which was a nice surprise to be honest. I filled my inventory with a load of interesting items in the hope it would be enough to win the Grange display, which of course it did. Come on. This gave me enough tokens to gamble until I had enough to buy the star drop and then the prize ticket, making it a very successful fair day. Day 73, I received a rabbit's foot from my rabbit, although I didn't really need one anymore. At Clint's, I collected my steel pan and opened up some mystery boxes. I then patiently waited outside Emily's door like a creep to hand her all the gems to complete the special order. I did fill my inventory with bombs ready for the Skull Cavern, but since half of the day had already gone, I chose to skip the day to day 74, where I could warp straight off. Just like every Skull Cavern's dive, it was very successful, getting a whole load of iridium and other goodies. I did end up passing out today, as I couldn't resist getting all of this iridium on floor 84. Day 75, my sweet gem berries were ready to collect, which meant I could offer one up to the statue in the secret woods, giving me yet another star drop. And I went around chopping every tree in the Cindersap forest with my newfound energy boost, and opened some geodes at Clint's, getting very close to completing the museum collection already. I did return to send off my pan to gold. Getting it upgraded now before Ginger Island will be essential. I navigated to the Adventurers Guild and collected another book which will give me a 50% discount in Marlon's item recovery service. Day 76, I collected a sunflower which I needed to drop off inside the community centre, and on my return home I noticed that my pig had produced its first truffle, which means I can complete the chef's bundle and finally gotten one of the hardest community centre items off the list. I ran to the saloon to give Gus a catfish, which I stole from the community centre fish tank to help wrap up a Help Wanted quest. Day 77, I was collecting some full forage that had grown overnight, and just like every other Sunday, rode the bus to the desert to trade for more staircases, but also place some tappers on oak trees that had fully grown there. Day 78 marks the final week in the fall season, and it begins with some broccoli and also a large egg and a duck feather from my animals, which I could drop off at the community centre to complete the dye bundle, and it left only one more item to complete the animal bundle. The new special order this week is Gus's famous omelette, which is a nice easy one. It will just take some time to complete. From another prize ticket, I managed to get an apple sapling, which same with the peach one, I couldn't plant it as I don't have the room. Before calling it in for the night, I used up a load of iron and coal and made some bombs in preparations for a big Skull Caverns run I have planned tomorrow. Although I wasn't patient enough to wait until tomorrow, and even though I missed half the day, I still managed to get down to floor 78 before leaving. I had some more cranberries and corn today. I managed to get the 5 gold star quality ones to complete that bundle, leaving only the animal bundle until I unlocked the greenhouse. The entire day was yet another Skull Caverns run, since I didn't really have much more I could do at this point in the season. I found a second auto grabber today, which would make things much easier for my animals now. Day 80, I had some pumpkin juice ready to collect, which is what I've been doing with my pumpkins, just to make a little bit more gold from each of them. At Clint's, I picked up my golden pan and opened a whole load of more geodes. I had so many iridium bars today, I sold them all at Clint's, which put me on a total of 58,000 gold. I also gave George a birthday gift which upped him straight to 3 hearts. Then at Robin's, I decided to do the first house upgrade, and also buy myself a workbench and a calendar. At the desert, I expanded the tree farm even more, and then back to the Cindersap forest to clear out every tree I could. Day 81 starts by queuing outside Clint's to send off my axe for an upgrade to iridium, and then to Marnie's to buy 2 heaters in order to keep my animals nice and warm when we transition into winter. And honestly, I chose to head back into bed today. We had a load more crops to collect this morning, and a bunch of animal products from inside the coops and barns, but once again, I was seriously low on hay again, which means another load of gold wasted. Skipping to day 83, I'm back to smelting ores, and also moving some of my preserved jars into the newly expanded house. Upgrading the house will actually be a really clever way of gaining more space on the farm, as I can continue to upgrade this house pretty much as I want. I do want to move my furnaces and chests into the house now to save on space, and that's exactly how I spent the rest of the day, creating a new chest area and even a workbench in the centre, which will make crafting so much easier later down the line, and even now to be honest. In the evening, once I'd moved every item into their new home, was of course Spirit's Eve, so I traversed the maze, collected my golden pumpkin, and then went home. Day 84, I continued to move the remainder of the kegs into the new room. They weren't going to be here permanently, as I wouldn't have enough room for them all, but for now would work. Having so many extra chests will make storage much easier as well. I also made up 3 more crystallariums to start duplicating even more jades. At Clint's, I picked up my new iridium axe, which I used to chop more trees in the desert, and collected a whole load more oak resin. At the travelling cart, I bought a nautilus shell, which I could use to complete the field research bundle, and after more smelting, I decided to head to bed, ready for the new winter season. So here we are, day 85 is the start of the winter season, and the last 15 days will be huge for the rest of the series. We still have to complete the community centre, and I still want to make progress on Ginger Island. Yet again, I made even more crystallariums to duplicate even more jades and diamonds. This week's special order was from Gunther to collect 100 pieces of bone, so I spent the rest of the day in the frozen levels of the mines to slay as many skeletons as possible. Day 86 was spent farming for even more bones to finally get 100 pieces of it in the afternoon. But on winter 3, I finally found all of the winter forage, which means I can finally complete the crafts room bundle, unlocking the quarry in the morning. It was also Linus's birthday today, so I gave him a coconut which he loved. What was even better than that was I finally had enough apples from the farm cave to fully complete the bulletin board bundle, meaning I only have one more room left, which was the pantry, which unlocked the greenhouse, which I would need a large milk or large goat milk for. I was then down to the Cindersap forest to catch the glacier fish, which did prove some troubling, but I managed to get it. Day 88 I collected some horrible corn juice and smelted even more raws, but luckily my cows had produced a large milk, which means I could finally unlock the greenhouse, but more importantly, finally complete the community centre. This was the point, however, how happiness turned into sadness. For a while I had big plans for the greenhouse, but then I remembered. I don't have a greenhouse. There isn't one here. So overnight the Junimos restored absolutely nothing, which just absolutely filled me with sadness. After realising that, I chose to distract myself and go through the quarry cave to collect the golden scythe, and also bomb the entire quarry to collect a load more resources, but mainly just so I can use the space. My first plan was to grow crops here, until I realised that you can't grow crops here. Oh god, things aren't going as planned. It wasn't all bad however, as I could still use the quarry to place kegs. Before heading to bed, I made sure to plant some powder melon seeds and some winter foraging seeds. Day 89, it was nice to see the whole town enjoying the restoration of the community centre and forgetting all about my disgusting tiny farm. And I also watched Pierre and Maurice settle things the old-fashioned way. I decided to skip the day today as I really wanted to get Willie's boat fixed. So, on day 90, I received a letter from Willie asking me to come round and see something in his back room. I then donated 5 battery packs, 5 iridium bars and 200 pieces of hardwood, which means I'll be able to travel to Ginger Island in the morning. I watched Robin repair the boat overnight, which meant only one thing: Ginger Island time. Once I arrived on the island, I collected the usual golden walnuts, and on the island west, I managed to get 2 snake vertebrae right away. I suppose the game's trying to make up for the greenhouse and the quarry now, aren't they? Yeah. My main priority was to plant my ancient seeds alongside a melon, garlic and wheat needed for the Gorman frog later. Day 92, I stayed on Ginger Island and repaired the bridge to the dig site, where I freed Professor Snail. Today was also the day of the Festival of Ice, but since it was super boring, I chose to spend it on the island. After donating a few bones to Professor Snail, I chose to dive into the volcano, and by 8 PM I managed to reach the summit and collect my free prismatic shard. And I spent the rest of the day clearing out the island farm before returning home in the evening. Day 93, I'm back to smelting, and I collected some powder melons and witnessed a strange meeting with Emily after completing her rock rejuvenation special order. And this week's special order tasked me to find a prismatic jelly, so I spent the entire day resetting the lava levels to try and find it, but I didn't find it. Day 94, I'm straight back into the mines to try and find the prismatic slime, and it did take me all the way up to 6:40 PM to find it. I rushed it straight to the wizard to wrap up another special order. This is probably one of the best special orders to do, as you can get the recipe for the monster musk. After collecting some winter forageables this morning, I got the notification that I had leveled up in farming, which means I had fully maxed out all of my skills, which I actually managed to do in only 23 days in this video. Check it out. After this one, of course, I did spend day 95 doing another Skull Caverns run, and I tried to level up the mastery even more. The bonuses the Mastery Cave offers are just super good, especially that new furnace. On floor 100, I bumped into Mr. Key, who made me drink some horrible tasting iridium snake milk, which did increase my health, so worth it, I guess, maybe? Before the end of the day, I got the confirmation that I had reached level 10 farming, and of course I chose the Artisan perk, which is the best perk in the game, which meant I made 25,000 gold after selling all of the Artisan goods. Day 96, I'm greeted with the message that I sense a new way has opened, which is obviously the Mastery Cave. To fill up some time before the end of the video, I chose to participate in the annual Squid Fest, and getting 8 squids gave me all of these rewards. One of these was the Art of Crabbing book, which gives me a 25% chance of getting extra fish from a crab pot. Whilst I remembered, I also bought another star drop from Krobus for 20,000 gold, and met up with the wizard in the railroad, and he tasked me to find the Dark Talisman to gain access to the Witch's Swamp. After venturing into the mutant bug lair, with the help of Krobus, I collected the Dark Talisman. Whilst in here, I decided to catch the Slime Jack, and I did also try for the mutant carp, but I couldn't get it to bite. Day 97, I travelled to the Witch's Swamp and caught myself some void salmon, and I distracted the henchman with some void mayonnaise to collect the wizard's magical ink. As a reward, he allowed me to construct buildings such as obelisks and Junimo houses on the farm, although I don't know where I'm going to put them. I did decide to participate in the second and final day of the Squid Fest, and I managed to catch 10 of them, getting all of this rewards. Honestly, with the bait maker, it doesn't even take that long, so I would always recommend doing this. For some strange reason, I decided to build myself a fish pond, which is a problem for 200 days. If you guys want that, of course. What is going through my head? I barely have enough room as it is. Since the quarry cannot be used to grow crops, I chose to try and fill it with kegs. Of course, by 200 days, I want this entire thing filled. Day 98, I traded for 48 staircases, which I gained from my vast empire of crystallariums. I did decide to buy a garlic seed from the travelling cart, which alongside a melon and wheat seed, I planted on Ginger Island. I used 20 golden walnuts to repair the island hut, and then another 5 golden walnuts to repair the mailbox. I then donated a few more bones to Professor Snail, such as the mummified frog, before clearing out the dig site again. Day 99 was my first day of the travelling market, which was exciting to be honest, and I spent the entire day inside the volcano. There were so many things I needed to find inside of here, such as journal scraps, dragon teeth and bones. And I checked out the travelling market in the evening, which didn't sell too much stuff. And that means we have made it to day 100. Here we are, back on Winter 17, or day 101. It's been a while since I played, so the first few days back are always a bit chaotic, as I tried to remember what I was doing and where I was. I met up with the wizard and handed him a void essence for his birthday, which bumped him straight up to 6 hearts. In relation to my goals for the next 200 days, it's perfection. Even though that's a while away, that's our ultimate goal. I have read so many of your comments on ideas to maximise the space here on Tiny Farm, and I'll try to implement as many as possible. The first task of the day is to remove this terrible old tree farm. Someone had suggested that I use the quarry space to construct a ginormous tree farm, filled with tappers and mushroom logs, so without wasting any time today, that's what I planned to do. Of course, in the previous 100 days, I had planned to place my kegs here, but I had another plan for them. So the rest of the day was spent laying out the perfect tree farm to maximise oak resin and also the mushroom logs. Although I received a message around 5 PM that the night market was open, which I had completely forgotten about, so I rushed down there right away. I took the submarine straight down to the bottom of the ocean to fish up the spookfish, midnight squid, and the blobfish whilst I was down here. I could then return to the quarry to lay out even more trees, and this did take the entire day, and I passed out to wrap up the first day back on Tiny Farm. On day 102, we can collect a fresh batch of jades from our crystallariums and prepare a batch of tree fertilizer to help our trees grow even faster inside the quarry. We can also add my first few mushroom logs, however, I don't think I could ever have the materials to completely fill this thing. After fertilizing everything we could, we head back to begin the next viewer suggestion, filling the road tunnel with kegs. Since nobody ever walks down here, this can work great as a place to fill with kegs. I was then to Robin's to do some more moving around of the buildings, and whilst we're here, I'll mention it, but unfortunately, due to this being a very old mod, we are unable to move the house, since it leaves these immovable objects behind, which is a super annoying fact, but will mean we have to be more creative on how we place things here on Tiny Farm. At the same time, we also need to find the space for 4 obelisks, a golden clock, and so much more. So yeah, this is gonna be tough. I ended up with this layout for now, but don't worry, this will change significantly over the course of the 200 days. To fill up the rest of the day, I spent it decorating the new farm layout with some fences and grass starters ready for my animals to come out in the spring season. It did take the entire day, but I was fairly pleased with the result at the end. Strangely overnight, a witch appeared and used some strange magic on my coop. This will mean that I will now have some void chickens. For the raccoon, I needed a smoked perch, so I went straight down to the river to catch myself one. Before I did that though, I unlocked the first mastery of the series after catching a pike. For the first mastery, I chose to unlock the mining mastery to give me the heavy furnace recipe alongside some other useful mining related buffs. Back home, I made a row of heavy furnaces and began to smelt a lot of different ores. I still had to complete a special order from Linus today to collect 20 pieces of trash, which did take some time to do on floor 100 in the normal mines, and whilst I was here, I managed to catch myself a lava eel. Once I had all 20 pieces, I disposed all of the trash in the garbage can behind the railroad. Linus had sent me the crafting recipe for the fibre seeds after completing a special order yesterday, which I decided to make a large batch of to plant on the farm. What was great is they can be grown regardless of the season and don't need to be watered after the first time. Of course, here on Tiny Farm, we don't have a lot of space to do this, but since the animals won't come out until the spring season, we have plenty room to grow some in the meantime. I then went to the museum to donate one more artifact. Of course, I need to remember, I need to fully complete the museum if I plan on reaching perfection anytime soon. Back in the desert, I could trade in some rubies and diamonds to the desert trader for some more spicy eels and triple shot espressos. And then whilst I was here, I decided to head to the oasis and spend all of my gold on some starfruit seeds, which I could then take to the island farm to plant. Since I don't have any battery packs to make any more iridium sprinklers, I would have to use the normal ones for now, until I could get either the solar panels or some lightning rods during the summer storms. It didn't take too long to lay out, and I do think it looks pretty ugly right now. But don't worry, by the end of the 200 days, we will have this entire farm filled with ancient fruit, worth thousands and thousands of gold. I also chose to plant some more fibre seeds here, since again, they don't need watering after the initial water. On day 105, I headed up to the quarry to see how the tree farm was progressing, and wow, it's going to look great in a few weeks' time. Today, I chose to return to the volcano to collect some more resources, such as more golden walnuts, dragon teeth, and cinder shards. I made sure to bring a lot of bombs with me, which allowed me to collect a large number of journal scraps and also golden walnuts. Inside one of the volcano chests, we did find a dragon tooth club, which is a decent weapon, but its slow speed will make it difficult to use consistently. We also found one more bone to drop off at Professor Snail's field office, which was a bonus. Day 106, I thought we should do another Skull Caverns dive. We have plenty of bombs and staircases, so why not? It turned out to be an incredible run, making it past floor 120 and collecting a load of iridium ore and other useful materials, including 3 prismatic shards. Since it was a new week, I could choose another special order from Pelican Town. I went with Robin's Resource Rush, and went back home to collect a load more iridium bars from my heavy furnaces to sell to Clint in order to afford a trip to the island, as it costs 1000 gold every single time. Obtaining that island obelisk before the 200 days deadline will assist us greatly here. On the island I harvested some crops and could now show the frog the 3 different crops in order to gain even more golden walnuts. With these ones I could repair the island resort and unlock the island east, and then also build the island trader for another 10 golden walnuts. I took the time to do some panning at the dig site and also cleared out some more bones and clay, which are both useful materials to keep. To wrap up a productive day, I chose to make a few more crafting recipes, such as the bone mill and the statue of the Dwarf King. Back on the island, I painfully traded 5 dragon teeth for a banana sapling since I hadn't gotten one yet. And since they take 28 days to grow, the sooner we plant one, the better. And spent another day inside the volcano to get more dragon teeth and cinder shards. And by the evening, I collected one more golden walnut from a journal scrap on the island beach. Another tip that people have suggested for me to do is to use garden pots combined with deluxe retaining soil, which will only ever need to be watered once, which could be a good substitute for the lack of growing space on the tiny farm. Of course, day 109 is the Feast of the Winter Star, and this year my secret gift giver was for Sam, whom I gave a pizza to. And Robin was mine, giving me some stone. Thanks, I guess. Day 110, I made sure to head to the blacksmith's to hand Clint a birthday gift before heading to Ginger Island to fish in the dig site, mainly for more golden walnuts and any new bones to donate to Professor Snail. Luckily for me, I managed to get the fossilized spine, which I could drop right off, leaving one more bone until the entire collection was complete. The final event of the day was to head back to the Mastery Cave and unlock one more perk. I chose the Foraging perk, which can allow me to get the Mystic Tree Seed and Treasure Totems, which will help me completing the museum. We went straight over to the tree farm to collect some more mushrooms, and it was nice to see that the entire quarry is now fully grown with trees. I hope to cover the entire trees with tappers at some point in order to get unlimited oak resin and other materials. And at the bottom, I decided to plant some mahogany seeds with some tree fertilizer for a bit of extra hardwood. Since I wanted to complete the museum soon, I headed to Clint to open a load more geodes, and I managed to donate a few more items. Back on Ginger Island, I planted even more mahogany seeds and also harvested a huge batch of fibers, which granted me a few more golden walnuts in the process. I chose to trade in all of my coconuts to the island trader in exchange for some golden coconuts, which have the chance to drop the final bone I needed to complete the field office. And the remainder of the day was spent inside the volcano completing Robin's resource rush, which tasked me to complete 1,000 pieces of stone in only 1 week. And for the final day of the year, I donated a smoked perch to the raccoon bundle. As for the rest of day 112, it was spent filling the road tunnel with even more kegs and opening some artifact troves, and also 7 golden coconuts, which didn't give me the bone I wanted. So that was quite annoying. Back in the desert, I chose to chop down the entire old tree farm since, well, I already have a much more organised and better one than this. It would also free up a load more tappers, which I could add to the trees. To wrap up the year, I was down to the frozen levels of the mines with some monster musk in order to try and slay 500 dust sprites, to obviously get that incredible burglar's ring. But that is how I ended the first year on Tiny Farm. And here we are, day 113 officially marks the start of my second year on Tiny Farm, and my gosh, we have so much to do this year, and so little time and space. Kent is at my door this morning, letting me know he's moving back into the valley, and the first operation this morning was to clear the incredible amounts of debris that had formed overnight. I did send off my pan for an upgrade to iridium, and today I picked up and opened a few more golden mystery boxes. At Pierre's, I bought myself a load of each variety of seed for many reasons: cooking, gifts, and the shipping collection. The weekly special order was a good one, from Caroline, Island Ingredients, which, if we complete before the end of the season, we will be able to get ourselves some solar panels, which would mean unlimited battery packs. For some reason at Robin's, I chose to spend a lot of gold buying a bunch of crafting recipes and also demolishing the fish pond, which you will find out later we will regret doing. But for now, the main reason I did this is I just bought a load of seeds and I have no room to plant them. On Ginger Island we have some debris to clear out and also some fruits to collect. Of course, this season we're going to be prioritising completing the Island Ingredients quest, but slowly expanding our ancient fruit empire, which was how we spent the remainder of the day, turning ancient fruits back into more ancient seeds and then planting them right away, alongside some pineapples as well for the special order. After such a productive first day of the season, on day 114 we get right back to work, which started by collecting only a few bottles of starfruit wine and replacing them with even more starfruit. It wasn't a lot right now, but every bit of gold adds up in the long run. I headed to the mines to access the dwarf shop in order to buy the dwarf safety manual, allowing bombs to not damage me as much, which is always going to be useful. But now, since Kent had moved back into the valley, we could begin the treasure trade for the pirate's locket. I received the gourmand tomato salt from him, and since I couldn't visit Gus until after 12 PM, I chose to spend the day today inside the Skull Caverns, hoping to get more iridium ore and work on reaching a higher level in my masteries. As always, it was a great run, managing to come away with 2 prismatic shards and over 200 pieces of iridium ore. I also didn't forget to trade for some more items at the desert trader before I left for the day. Day 115 starts with taking the minecart up to Clint's to open some more artifact troves, and also sell a bunch of iridium bars to afford another house upgrade at Robin's for 65,000 gold and 100 pieces of hardwood. People have let me know that I can expand the house pretty much as I want, allowing me to have a lot more space, since, well, we don't have a lot of that. We can resume the Pirate's Locket quest by handing Gus the tomato salt, and then the rose to Sandy. Back home, we began laying out the new indoor garden, using garden pots and deluxe retaining soil. Of course, by the end of the series, we would love to have a giant indoor garden to compensate for the lack of outdoor growth space. In the meantime though, I planted some rhubarbs and beets, but after watering these once, I won't have to ever again, which is super cool. I was then to George to give him the advanced television remote, then to the wizard, and then finally to Willie to receive the Pirate's Locket. Although, since his shop was closed for the day, I would have to wait until tomorrow to give Birdie it back. Day 116 starts with making some lightning rods during a rainy day in the hope of some battery packs, even though I didn't know I won't get any in this weather. It's Kent's birthday today, so I gave him some roasted hazelnuts, which are a love gift. If I was going to reach perfection anytime soon, I was going to need to work on friendships, which, as you all know, is very tough, and we just cannot afford to miss any birthdays. Back on the island farm, we collected some pineapples for the island ingredients special order, and also a few star fruits, and could finally hand Birdie the Pirate's Locket back. After checking Mr. Key's walnut room door, I found out that I was only one golden walnut away, so I headed to the Pirate's Cove and dug up one more, which now meant I could access his special walnut room. The walnut room offers some really tough quests that reward you with key gems. For the first one, I chose Skull Cavern Invasion, which tasked me to reach floor 100 of the Skull Caverns, but it was invaded by dangerous monsters. For the first time, I could view the perfection tracker to see I was at 23%. Yeah. Still a long way away, but if we keep up the pace, we can get really close before the end of the 200 days, I know it. Back on the island farm, I now had enough walnuts to repair the island warp totem, which wouldn't be too useful, as if I haven't mentioned it yet, the warp totem on the farm is actually broken, and every time I walk back home, it warps me out of bounds. Which is why I really want to try and get the return scepter as soon as possible, as it returns you to your house doorstep, not the warp totem. Although its 2 million gold price tag is very scary. To wrap up the day, I spent some time trying to catch the legend, which is always tough, but I managed to get it with some ease, unlike this video where I managed to get it in only 3 days. Day 117 starts with harvesting some parsnips and also the beginning of the shipping collection. I have at least 70% of these items all stored away in my chests, so I took some time today to ship some of them this morning, of course requiring 100% shipping collection to achieve perfection. Talking of perfection, I made up a load more crafting recipes I haven't done yet today, as I was feeling a bit down after seeing my measly 23%. On the island farm, I harvested even more starfruit and laid out a couple more iridium sprinklers for my eventual empire. But for now, I filled the fields with seeds I bought a few days ago, which I'll be needing for recipes and shipping collection later down the line. We awaken on day 118 to a much larger house. I took straight off to Robin's to build myself a new silo, as I couldn't remember where I got rid of the old one to. And to be honest, my animals were gonna need the hay soon. I sent off my watering can for an upgrade to iridium, getting closer and closer to upgrading all of the tools. I also wandered into the abandoned Joja Mart for the first time today to see the missing bundle. This is something I really want to complete as soon as possible to unlock the movie theatre. Since the house was looking quite messy, I chose to do some rearranging today, and by the end of the day, this was how it looked. Of course, this will all be redone before the end of the series, but it works quite well for now. Although, we still don't have a good place for our bed to go, so in the middle of the kitchen works fine for now. The first thing on day 119 was to replace the crystallariums. When I unlock the basement, I'll have to move them, but it's good enough for now. Since it was a Sunday, I could trade a bunch of jades at the desert trader for some staircases, which was pretty good timing, as I still need to complete the Skull Cavern Invasion quest from Mr. Key, and these staircases would make things much easier. Whilst I was down here, anytime I saw radioactive ore, I made sure to grab it since it can be used in some important recipes. And I was done with it before the late afternoon and came away with 28 radioactive ore. Back in Mr. Key's walnut room, I chose to buy myself the key to the town alongside the deconstructor for some reason. But the key to the town is super useful, although I constantly forget I actually have it, and I'll see myself waiting outside people's houses all the time. In the evening, I began deconstructing some old crafting recipes alongside smelting a few more ores, and I also made sure to hand Mayor Lewis a gift for his birthday. Day 120 was spent doing yet another Skull Caverns run, and on day 121 we can collect a batch of starfruit wine that had finished brewing overnight, before heading down to the Mastery Cave to unlock one more. This time I decided to choose the Farming Mastery, which will give me the Iridium Scythe, which allows for harvesting of crops. At Clint's I picked up my Iridium watering can and opened a few more golden mystery boxes. Back on the island I collected some more ancient fruits and picked up the extended family quest from Mr. Key. Back on the beach I caught the son of the Crimson Fish and decided to leave the rest until tomorrow since it was quite late. Day 122 I decided to do a tiny bit of cooking this morning. I didn't have a lot of cooking recipes right now, but the sooner I can start working on them, the less trouble it will cause us later on. Today was also Vincent's birthday, so I handed him a snail as a love gift. Inside the sewers, we picked the extended family quest back up and caught the radioactive carp, then the glacier fish jr, Mrs. Angler, but I didn't have enough time for the Legend 2 tonight. On the final day of the key quest, I finally caught the Legend 2 this morning, which was surprisingly hard. At Marnie's, I bought the animal catalogue and some hay. The animal catalogue will be extremely useful, as it will allow us to access her shop even when she isn't there, which is obviously great considering she never likes to work. Then I returned to the river to catch some sunfish for the Pelican Town special order, and with the bait maker and sunfish bait, it didn't take that long at all to wrap it up. Back on the island, I had a range of different crops to collect, all of which I plan on hoarding for any future recipes I might have. I did still need around 50 more pineapples to complete the special order, but with the amount of pineapples we were currently growing, we should be able to get there in a few weeks. Once again I could fill up the kegs in the road tunnel with some starfruit, since I wasn't using my ancient fruits at the moment and instead turning them all back into seeds. We were going to need some way to make gold in the meantime. Day 124 I made up a few more garden pots with deluxe retaining soil to grow even more crops indoors, and decided over the next few days my new goal was to catch all of the fish, which is something I need to do for perfection and for a star drop. One of those fish was the stonefish, which I caught quite quickly on floor 20 of the normal mines. That was the plan until I got distracted by the idea of enchanting my tools and weapons, which led me to the volcano to farm some cinder shards, which I'll be saving for later trips where I'll be experimenting at the forge. Normally I completely forget about enchanting my tools, so in this series we will be diving fully into that. Day 125 was the return of the annual Egg Festival, which, of course, I had to participate in, and ultimately win very easily and collect another prize ticket. The next day we can head back to the quarry to collect a load more oak resin and maple syrup, and also a bunch of mahogany trees I've grown, allowing me to collect an insane amount of hardwood. Back on the farm, we could plant some strawberries, which I bought yesterday at the annual Egg Festival, once again for future gifts and cooking recipes. In town, I made sure to hand Hayley a golden pumpkin for her birthday, and the remainder of the day was spent cleaning up on the island farm, and accidentally getting stuck out of bound once again because of the warp totem. This is exactly why I wanted that return scepter as soon as possible. Day 127 is the first day of the wonderful Desert Festival, which can mean only one thing: a giant Skull Caverns dive, trying to get as many calico eggs as possible, although I didn't have many bombs. And also, my first calico statue made mummies angry, which was just great luck. Funnily enough, it turned out to be a great dive, although I did have to leave quickly due to the lack of bombs, and also, there were just too many monsters. I did get an egg rating of 25 today, which allowed us to collect Gil's hat, and also a bonus 200 more calico eggs. I could use these to trade in for some useful items at the stores. I did decide to buy an ancient doll for 1 calico egg, since I didn't have it, and also a magic rock candy for 300. For the rest of the eggs, I decided to trade in for some mega bombs. I did still have a little bit of time left today, so I spent it inside the Cindersap forest chopping down all the trees, since I'll be needing the wood soon for all the kegs I'll be building. The next day I awoke with just over 100,000 gold after selling a load of iridium bars last night. And before I went back to the desert, I placed a load more kegs I had made up and filled them all up with starfruit, which I collected from Ginger Island a few days ago. Talking of the island, I had some more ancient fruits ready today, which I could turn into even more ancient fruit seeds, and also a new weekly key quest. It was Danger in the Deep this time, which was definitely one of the harder ones, but it can give you 50 whole key gems. The reason I sold the iridium bars yesterday was to spend most of the gold on bombs. I know this is a really bad value for money here, but since I was going to do at least 2 more skull cavern dives over the course of the last 2 days of the desert festival, I definitely would be needing more. And it ended up being another great run, making it to floor 100 and an egg rating of 34, much better than yesterday. And turning in my egg rating to Gil, I received another 200 calico eggs and 5 troubleshot espressos. And since none of the shops had anything I wanted, I chose to save the eggs until tomorrow, which began by harvesting a few rhubarbs from my indoor garden, and this time I warped straight to the desert and used my magic rock candy. With the magic rock candy active, it turned out to be the most incredible run I've ever had, and I did have a close call towards the end of the day, which was certainly quite lucky to say the least. But on floor 145, this happened. Yep, I pushed my luck and died with an egg rating of 54, just one rating of 55, which would have given me a free magic rock candy and 500 calico eggs. I wasn't too happy about this, but the show must go on regardless. Since it was the final day of the festival, we were able to trade our eggs in for a magic rock candy anyway, and the rest in for more mega bombs. Day 130, I headed straight to the wizard to hand him some ectoplasm I managed to find yesterday, completing the Pelican Town special order for this week. I also collected another batch of starfruit wine and proceeded to open a load more Omni Geodes, of course hoping to get all the final artifacts I still needed. After spending 3 days inside the Skull Caverns, we were able to unlock one more mastery, this one being the fishing mastery, giving me the advanced fishing pole, which allows for 2 tackles to be applied at once, and once I start trying to catch all the fish, I'll be needing this. We still did have the weekly key quest, Danger in the Deep, to complete, which is what we did today, making it down 10 more floors before the end of the day. Day 131, I chose to make it down 5 more floors before taking some cinder shards up to the forge, hoping to enchant my tools or a weapon. For the first one, I chose the Galaxy Sword, to which I got Vampiric, which gives me a chance at receiving health back from any slain enemy. Since the main problem for enchanting was cinder shards, I chose to farm a bunch more today, and later into the night I made it all the way back up to the forge again. This time I added 3 rubies to my sword, each costing 10 cinder shards apiece, giving it a huge damage buff, which will be super useful in those tricky dangerous mines trips, so this was very much worth our time. Since I was in the mood for more enchanting and combining, I chose to take some monster musk to the normal mines to slay some dust sprites, although I had just realised it was still the dangerous mines, so dust sprites wouldn't be spawning. So instead I chose to head to Clint's to collect some new artifacts and drop them off at the museum, leaving me very close to completing the whole thing. Since the dangerous mines were starting to get in the way of my objectives, I chose to work on it once again, making it to floor 30, with the plan of using loads of staircases for the rest of it tomorrow. Day 133, I could warp to the desert to trade for some more food items, but more importantly, 69 staircases, which made getting to the bottom of the dangerous mines very easy today, and finally collecting my 50 key gems. Whilst down here, I did manage to find my first Infinity Soul, which, if I can find 3, can turn one of the Galaxy weapons into one of the Infinity ones. With the key gems, I chose to buy the horse whistle for some reason, until I realised I don't have a horse. Yeah, that was pretty stupid. Day 134, I had some more ancient fruits to collect, which I've been slowly turning into ancient seeds, although the livestream chat suggested an interesting way I had never attempted before to make gold: Legend 2 fishing. If you have the extended family quest active, you can catch as many Legend 2s as you want, as long as the quest remains active the entire time. So that's what I tried to do today. I did try it, although I ran out of Legend 2 bait very fast, so I would try again tomorrow, and instead spend the entire day inside the volcano, bombing more floors and trying to get more cinder shards to upgrade my gear. We wake up on the island farm on day 135 after passing out last night. It's a bit messy, the farm still, but by the end of the 200 days the island farm will be fully cleared up. Back at the forge, I wanted to enchant my fishing rod with the preserving enchant, which has the chance to not consume bait every casting, which would be perfect for Legend 2 fishing. I tested my luck, although the first enchant I got was Master, which was annoying, but I had just enough for one more, and I got Auto Hook, which was great. I suppose I'd have to forget about Legend 2 fishing this time, and maybe try again when I'm a bit more prepared. After spending another day inside the volcano, I could enchant the fishing rod once more, and I finally got preserving. Day 136, I had more starfruit wine ready today. It wasn't much, but every gold counts. Spring 24 was the day of the annual flower dance, but annoyingly, I didn't have high enough hearts with anyone still this year. I'm not sure why it says it was fun, because it definitely wasn't. The next day I collected some strawberries from the garden pots, and also from the tiny crop fields in the morning. I didn't do a lot today, but in the evening I collected some more oak resin and maple syrup from the tree farm. Looking back on the footage for day 138, I was running around doing a whole load of nothing, until pretty much the late evening, when I took some iridium sprinklers to expand the island farm a bit more. I also noticed that my banana tree had finally produced bananas, which meant I could take one to get some golden coconuts from inside the jungle. Day 139, I gave Pierre some sashimi to wrap up a quest, and chose to spend 100,000 gold to upgrade the house once more, giving me a basement. I also remembered to give Emily an aquamarine for her birthday, although by the looks of things, she was definitely hiding from me. And for the final day of the season, I smelted a few more bits of iridium ore, which I can sell later if I need the gold. Since I was running low on wood, I chose to chop down all the newly grown trees in the cindersap forest, and watched Emily look after a bird which had sadly flown into a window. Whilst I remembered, I chose to fish by the waterfalls to catch the goby, one more fish to the collection of course. But apart from more smelting, that was how I spent the final day of the spring season. Day 141 officially marks the start of my second summer in the Tiny Farm series, and we still have so much to do, so let's not waste any time. As with every start to a new season, we have some debris to clear, and in town, I picked up Pierre's Prime Produce special order. From this point onwards, I will be playing with the to-do list mod on, which will allow me to keep a list of everything I need to be working on, since, as you all know, I can get distracted very quickly, and this mod will ensure we stay right on track. And so I added my first thing to do, which was to build a stable, since I bought the horse whistle a few days ago without a horse. In Mr. Key's walnut room, I picked up 4 precious stones special order, and also picked up a load of magic bait. The reason for this was because I finally wanted to go and catch every single fish in the game to get the Master Angler achievement, alongside the star drop for doing so. Using a sonar bobber, I would be able to see exactly what fish I was supposed to get, and I managed to get the albacore and super cucumber on Ginger Island. And whilst I was here, I also caught the stingray in the Pirate's Cove, and then the midnight carp. We are straight to the desert on day 142 to get the scorpion carp, and to level 60 in the mines to catch the ice pip, and then floor 100 to catch the cave jelly. Another fish I hadn't gotten yet was the mutant carp, so we made sure to grab that one next, before heading to the river to get even more fish. I did also remember to set up a load of crab pots to get all the respective crab pot fish exclusive to that. In the river we caught another load of new fish, and in the evening I finally ventured down into the cellar and removed all the casks. I had other plans for this area in the house right now, and in all honesty, I don't really like the casks that much. And since I really wanted to start combining my rings now, I chose to spend the rest of the night farming dust sprites on the lower levels of the mines with some monster musk, managing to get the burglar's ring. Day 143, we are back to the island farm to do some more planting, and after collecting the burglar's ring last night, I took all of my rings to the volcano, and after making my way through it once again, I combined the hot Java ring and the burglar's ring, and then the napalm ring with the iridium band, giving me the power of 4 rings in only 2 slots. We also had enough cinder shards for a single tool enchant, so I took a risk on the watering can, to which I got the best one, bottomless. This means I will never have to refill it. Before the night changed, I headed to floor 120 to activate the dangerous mines once again, as I wanted to farm as much coffee on the middle floors. And the most insane moment of the entire playthrough happened today. I found a monster floor on floor 66 of the dangerous mines, and that combined with monster musk led to the floor being completely overrun with spiders. Just look how many there were. This floor did make for some satisfying few minutes, as I farmed these floors out for the entire day, each dropping coffee and sometimes rare items like iridium bars and radioactive bars. I managed to come out with a load of cool items, along with 2 more infinity souls to make myself an infinity weapon. I decided this time I'd be using it on the galaxy hammer and turning it into the infinity gavel, and with some help from chat, I spent some gold to change my combat skills overnight to make this hammer super overpowered. I chose to take the scout perk and then the acrobat perk, which meant there is pretty much 0 cooldown on the slamming ability. Yeah, this is going to be super fun to use from now. Day 145 consists of yet another volcano dive to get even more cinder shards, and once I reached the forge, I could start turning the hammer into the infinity gavel. but in total it cost 60 cinder shards, which was super expensive, and would mean that any other enchants I had in mind would have to wait another day. But we did manage to get the infinity gavel we wanted, and it looks super cool. After spending the night on Ginger Island, we do one more volcano trip the next day for even more cinder shards, and enchanted my gavel once and got Crusader. Then once more to get Bug Killer, which was pretty painful. But after going back in and finding 2 more cinder shards, we could enchant it for the 3rd time, and we got exactly what we wanted, Artful. This makes the cooldown pretty much instantly now, and as you can see, this is going to be pretty overpowered. To wrap up the day, I crafted a few more recipes I hadn't done just yet, and slowly working our way up to perfection. Day 147 is the annual Green Rain event, and honestly is the luckiest day I have ever, and I will probably ever have on a Stardew Valley playthrough. Before I show you, I made sure to collect my final mastery inside the cave, and spent a lot of time collecting as many fibres and moss as possible. I'll play the clip from the stream so you can just see my real-time reaction to this. So out of pretty much nowhere, we actually get a living hat, which is already pretty insane. But I don't even notice it, and then not even 5 minutes later, on the return back to the farm, I find a second, yes second living hat. And it was safe to say, I didn't even realise how rare this was. Oh wait, I got the living hat. Isn't that meant to be rare? I got 2 of them. Wait, what? Are these meant to be rare? Wait. I say 0.0% double chance from following. Wait. How did I not notice that? Wait, that is actually insane. After a long and lucky day, I chose to give the other living hat to my cat, and we were both cutely matching. Day 148 begins with crafting the Statue of Blessings, which is a quite expensive crafting recipe, but can provide you with some useful buffs for the day. And to be honest, we would need to craft it anyway for perfection. And at Clint's I opened some more golden coconuts, hoping to get the final bone, which I didn't. I then opened a load more golden mystery boxes to get some goodies, and on the return to the farm, I saw Gus having some food troubles. It was nice for him to say he sees me as his good friend, and he handed me a mini jukebox. Back on the island, I seeded even more ancient fruits and checked the perfection tracker once again to see we were up to 39%, which was still quite low, but in terms of fish caught, we were missing exactly 1, which was the lobster from the crab pots. This week's key quest was extended family once again, so I thought I'd try my luck at the Legend 2 fishing. For the first day, I came away with 4 Legend 2s, which wasn't that bad at all. Then, day 149, I came away with 11 smoked Legend 2s in total, and that meant by day 150, the halfway stage, and 3 whole days of Legend 2 fishing, I came away with 17 smoked ones in total, and 1 which I'm keeping in a fish tank, which in all honesty isn't bad at all. That meant overnight I had made 539,000 gold, which was pretty insane and worthwhile. The next day was the Luau festival, so I put an iridium quality sturgeon into the soup and danced a bit with Emily. Day 152, we took a cave carrot to Marnie's after she requested one, and back on Ginger Island we had our biggest ancient fruit harvest yet. And as you can see, we are slowly making some great progress on the island farm. I decided to allocate the remainder of the day to fishing up 5 of each of the exclusive island fish in order to complete the special order from Pelican Town. And luckily with the bait maker, this was a breeze. Although today, I did do the unthinkable. I spent some gold at the Joja Parrot to find me the remainder of the golden walnuts, as in all honesty, I had no idea where to find the final ones. And also it would bump up my perfection rating, so yeah, kind of worth it. Day 153, we went up to Robin's to build ourselves a stable, since I had bought the horse whistle without a horse. I placed it here for now, and would worry about the placement later. Since I now had all the golden walnuts, I could finally repair the final things on the island. This will then allow me to trade in all of the useless golden walnuts for some key gems. And I decided to treat myself and buy some pressure nozzles in order to expand the island farm. Day 154, I was straight to the desert trader to get 124 staircases, to which I'll be keeping for any future key quests or skull cavern dives. Honestly, it had been long enough with a messy looking island farm, so today I had had enough. I chose to lay out the final sprinklers and surround paths with them. I also added a nice area with a few preserved jars whilst I had them on hand. At Hayley's house, I settled an argument between the sisters and also watched Emily rock out to some music. With the remainder of the day spent moving the chests to a new room inside the house. This time I'm making big stone chests as they look so much better. Late into the evening, I could take the final items to complete the missing bundle, and this would mean I could visit the movie theatre soon, which was super exciting. As expected, overnight the Junimos repaired the abandoned Joja Mart, and Jodie was at my door inviting me for dinner, which was nice. But more importantly, I managed to get a lobster yesterday, and that meant I had caught every single fish in the game, and Willie had sent me a star drop in the mail as a reward. Luckily the stable had finished construction on day 155, and thanks to the chat, I chose to name him Bojack Gons, because why not? For today, I chose to spend it inside the Skull Caverns with a magic rock candy, for plenty of iridium, and also to test out my new Infinity Gavel. And I'd just like to say, it does not disappoint. It became a super lucky run, and I came away with 8 prismatic shards in total, and making it all the way past floor 150. So it was very much worth the effort. On day 156, I could take 4 of those prismatic shards to drop in the box in Mr. Key's Walnut Room to wrap up the 4 prismatic stones quest, and also saw the extended family quest once again. From the store, I chose to buy Pierre's missing stock list, as it is quite useful allowing him to sell every single seed in the game. I just couldn't resist having another go at Legend 2 fishing. This time I did have a curiosity lure, which boosts the chance at finding rarer fish. It was a successful first day, and I came away with 8 Legend 2s. Day 157 was even better, and I managed to get around 18 before the late afternoon, where I decided to begin smoking and do other things, such as handing out gifts and more ancient seeding on the island farm. Day 158, the bookseller was in town, and I chose to buy every single book I hadn't already read, such as Way of the Wind, Horse the Book, and many more. And since the extended family quest was still active, I chose to complete it for the small extra key gems. I went down to catch the radioactive carp, but on the way I had to break up a fight between the dwarf and Krobus. The rest of the fish didn't cause me too much trouble, and with the key gems I bought some more pressure nozzles for the island farm. In relation to the rest of the day, I spent it measuring out the fields and planting many more ancient seeds. We start right back on Ginger Island on day 159, and it was at this point where I chose to use the UI Info Suite mod, since well, it's super useful for keeping track of birthdays, which I needed to get a hurry on with at this point. Back home I did some more chest sorting. This time I could remove the entire remnants of the old one and make them all into the new one. At Robin's, I chose to do a bit more moving around with the buildings, and I came to this nice layout, which obviously will be changing very soon, once I start building the 4 obelisks and the golden clock. In the meantime, I chose to build myself a shed to store all of my kegs in, since, well, I actually have the room now, which is definitely a strange thing to be saying, and I don't say it that often on Tiny Farm. I really wanted to make at least one more fish smoker, so I began fishing on floor 100 of the normal mines for another cave jelly, since that's what I was missing. With these extra smokers, it allowed me to smoke up all of the Legend 2s from a few days ago, which meant overnight I made over 500,000 gold once again. Day 160, I chose to work towards the Monster Slayer goals this time, and so with some trusty Monster Musk, I took to the mines to slay as many Void Spirits as possible, managing to complete it in good time. Another Monster Slayer goal I still had to do was mummies, so I took to the Skull Caverns to take that one off. Since you can't normally slay mummies, I would have to use bombs to finish the job. And once again, another successful Monster Slayer goal. Day 161 was more monster slaying, this time to the lower levels of the mines to slay some Duggies, and I even managed to find myself an ancient seed. Always seem to find these when I don't need them, but I didn't need to slay that many, and I completed it very quickly. It definitely had been a while since I added some mushroom logs to the tree farm in the quarry, so I added an entire row of them today. The only issue was, they cost so much to make. Courtesy of the UI Info Suite mod, I was reminded that today was the dwarf's birthday, so I made sure to take the minecarts up to him and give him an aquamarine. The weekly key quest this week was Extended Family or Danger in the Deep. Once again I couldn't resist taking Extended Family. After more ancient fruit planting, I caught some ocean fish to complete the special order from Pelican Town, and after checking a special note, I made my way up to the side of the river and claimed another artifact I hadn't yet found. I really wanted to complete the museum as soon as possible, to claim one of the last 2 star drops I needed, one from the museum and the other one's from marriage. Day 163, I picked up my new steel trash can and sent it straight off for an upgrade to gold. whilst also dropping off an ancient doll and receiving a magic rock candy from the museum as a reward, which let me know I was nearly done with donating. I did try my luck with gambling inside the casino, but after some unlucky attempts, I chose to leave it for now. 163 days in and I still hadn't gotten the final bone for Professor Snail's field office, so I decided to chop all of the trees on the island and traded in all of the coconuts to the island trader for 4 more golden coconuts, and would give me 4 more attempts at the bone. I'm straight to Robin's on day 164 in order to upgrade my shed straight to a big one, then down to the beach to hand Willie a birthday gift, upping him all the way to 9 out of 10 hearts. At the quarry, I checked the progress of some mystic trees I had planted a few days ago, and also chopped some trees down, as well, I'm so low on wood all of the time. I was extremely determined to start making some crazy gold now for the return scepter and the obelisks, so I filled up a load more kegs in the road tunnel with pineapples and ancient fruits. The next morning, I'm able to donate some wild plum jelly and some dried coconuts to the raccoon, giving me the raccoon journal, which gives an improved chance at receiving mixed seeds from fibres. At Clint's, I picked up my new gold trash can and sent it straight off for its final upgrade to Iridium. This will mark the final tool upgrade. After a suggestion, I begin construction of a fairy rose honey farm. If I'm able to get loads of beehives set up here, this can yield close to 50,000 gold every few days. I'll skip over this boring part. It consisted of me farming iron on the frozen levels of the mines, since I'd ran out once again, and I didn't want to waste any of my hard-earned gold on any. Day 166, I was back to the quarry to clean up the tree farm and chop a few more trees down, before returning to the island farm to also do some more cleaning. Since I was in a cleaning mood today, back at the base, I cleared out my chests and sold anything I didn't want anymore. 167, my shed had finally finished upgrading, so I started laying out the kegs. Of course, I'll be moving the ones from the road tunnel here at some point. I could finally complete one of my to-do list goals today and pick up my new Iridium trash can. And finally, after so many golden coconuts, I managed to finally get the bone I needed to complete Professor Snail's field office. Dropping the bone off, he rewarded me with the crafting recipe for the ostrich incubator, which meant I could now have my own ostrich on Tiny Farm. I did notice it did take cinder shards to make it, and if you've been watching, we don't have many of them left. Day 168 marks the official end of the summer season, and we still have so much to do in this 200 days. I'm straight to the desert to trade for some more staircases, and then annoyingly make a really expensive crafting recipe for the island warp totem, since I couldn't access the beach today because of the festival. This was of course so I could re-enter the volcano mines and find myself some more cinder shards to make the incubator. I came away with a whopping 45, and I couldn't resist enchanting one weapon. This time I chose to enchant the pickaxe and I got powerful, which is pretty good. And back home, we could finally start the incubation process, and in 5 days, we should have our very own ostrich join us here on Tiny Farm. In the evening, of course, we had to attend the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies, and like every single Stardew Valley video, let's just sit and enjoy it. Day 169 is the official start of my favourite season, Fall, which always begins with clearing out the debris that had formed overnight, and then to the quarry to use some fairy dust on the mystic trees in order to get myself some mystic syrup, which I'll be needing to make treasure totems, which was how I plan on getting the only few artifacts I had left. I used the first one at the beach, until I realised that the artifacts actually correspond to a specific place in the valley, and some can only appear in certain places, so that was pretty stupid from me. After a couple more in the desert this time, I managed to get one of the ones I was missing, the golden mask. This left only 3 more to find. Unfortunately, out of 5 treasure totems, we only managed to find that one. But that was fine, we still have plenty of time before the end of the 200 days, and at least I know how they work now. We did need one more mineral from a geode, so I took all my geodes to Clint's, and it didn't take us that long to find. It was the start of a new week, which meant a new key quest. And this time it was Key's Hungry Challenge, which tasks us to make it to level 100 in the Skull Caverns. However, I cannot eat or drink anything whilst I'm down there. In all honesty, this isn't too difficult, since I had plenty of staircases to make it a few easy key gems. Day 170, I collected a large batch of ancient fruit wine from the kegs in the road tunnel, and chose to clear them out this time in order to move them to the big shed. Any ones I had spare, I decided to fill the basement with them. With the key gems I earned yesterday, I purchased a heavy tapper recipe from his shop, which I could take to place on top of my mystic trees. And for the rest of day 170, I spent it inside the casino, managing to get 10,000 key coins in order to buy the rare crow. For a crafting recipe, I would need to collect all 8 rare crows. Overnight, I had made nearly 400,000 gold, which on day 171 put our grand total on 1.2 million. Very close to that 2 million needed for the return scepter. In the road tunnel, I collected some more wine and filled up the big shed full of ancient fruits. And I also dropped off 24 eggs to Gus's fridge in order to complete his special order too. I had finally reached enough hearts with Emily to ask her to be my girlfriend, and thankfully, she said yes. In relation to who my roommate might be for this tiny farm series, I did actually want Krobus, as I've never had him as a roommate before, and to be brutally honest, the main reason I was romancing Emily right now was for the magic set she gifts you, and the star drop of course. Yeah, I know, pretty messed up. I was over to the island farm on day 172 to collect a batch of fairy rose honey and trade some books at the bookseller. I chose to move my bed back into the kitchen in order to use the attic space to have an indoor fairy rose farm. I thought it was about time today to start focusing on that shipping collection. Anytime I had missed a crop, I made sure to head to Pierre's and buy the exact seeds I needed. Any crops that could be planted in fall, I planted on the tiny farm, and I would plant any more on the island. For the rest of the day was spent shipping even more items for the collection. I did have most of these items, and it was only a few I didn't have. 2 of those items I didn't have was the duck feather and caviar. If I keep petting my ducks, we'll eventually get a duck feather. It was the caviar that was the most worrying, because it requires sturgeon roe that can only be gotten through a sturgeon fish pond, or a tiny chance while fishing if you've read the Jewels of the Sea book. This was how the shipping collection looked on day 173. Still got a while to go, but we'll get there. For the first time since the movie theatre opened, I chose to ask the dwarf to come watch a movie with me. This was for 2 reasons. 1, his friendship was super low, and 2, he actually loved the film that was playing, so he was able to boost his friendship by an entire heart. Full 5th was obviously Elliot's birthday, and I gave him a pomegranate which he loved. I did have a hard time finding some of these villagers, so I decided to close off the island farm. And whilst I was on here, I could plant the seeds I bought yesterday for the shipping collection and covered them in deluxe speed grow. I spent some time the next morning to cook some more cooking recipes, and straight to the island farm to chop a bunch of hardwood trees. And that was it really. Overnight, however, I did hear the hoots of an owl, letting me know that the owl statue event occurred overnight. Day 175, I found the owl statue right in the middle of my paths, since well, it probably didn't have a lot of room else to spawn. I did finally cave in today and decided to clear up the tree farm, since rocks were spawning everywhere and making it impossible to walk. I did have enough to make some treasure totems today, and I managed to find the golden relic, which was yet another artifact I still had left to find. That meant I only had 2 artifacts left until the museum was complete. Day 176 was a new week of course, and for the key quest it was Key's Kindness, or Extended Family. Since I really wanted the key gems, I was forced to choose Key's Kindness, even though I hate this quest. And so I spent the entire day running around the valley, giving gifts. And that was the same for day 177 too, giving even more gifts. Anyone who's ever done this will know just how annoying it is. But in the evening, I handed Marnie a pumpkin pie to finally complete it and received 40 key gems. After shipping another large batch of ancient fruit wine overnight, I was up to 1.6 million gold and getting even closer to that 2 million mark. Day 178 was straight back to Ginger Island to harvest a large batch of ancient fruits, and also buy myself some pressure nozzles to finally finish the sprinkler layout on the island farm. And also, I bought a Junimo chest, and this was how the layout looked. I did do the top one higher than it was supposed to be, but that didn't really matter. Once they are close to finishing, I will have to wait for them all to sync up together, so I can have 1 single day per week which I can allocate to ancient fruit collecting and ancient fruit kegging. 179, I bought some more hay from Marnie's, since I had ran out once again, which is always super annoying. Using 3 more treasure totems, I was able to get 1 more artifact, the rusty cog, leaving only 1 more. With the remaining 2 treasure totems, I didn't get it. I did recently build another room inside the house, which I decided to turn into the animal production room, filled with cheese presses and mayonnaise machines. By the end of the day, this was how it looked. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was fun nonetheless. The bookseller was back on day 180, and I had some books to trade in for some useful items. That was before processing a whole load of animal products. Since I was still running out of wood, I chose to plant a crazy amount of trees in the train station area, looking pretty insane by the end. I could donate the last item to the raccoon bundle and received the raccoon hat today. It was also Abigail's birthday, and since I had an iridium quality pufferfish laying around, it made for a loved gift. Using one more treasure totem in town, I didn't manage to get the final artifact, but I did go back home, make one more, and this time I managed to finally get it. And donating it to the museum allowed me to complete the second to last star drop, but more importantly, complete the entire museum collection. Since it was a Sunday, I could take the bus to the desert to do the weekly staircase trading. Before I harvested a load of crops from the Ginger Island farm, that I both needed for recipes and the shipping collection. Day 183 was the start of a new week, and I really needed a plan for the caviar before the end of the 200 days. So instead of going through the pain of building a fish pond, which I still don't have the space for, I decided to risk it and take some magic bait and treasure bobbers to the mountain lake to hopefully get lucky and get some sturgeon roe. Before I did that, I managed to take a rabbit's foot to the strange van by the movie theatre to get the lucky charm, and then spent the entire day at the mountain lake trying to get it. As you can guess, we didn't get lucky enough, and I realised that now I'd have to cave in and build myself a fish pond. However, I couldn't actually do that today, as day 184 was the day of the Stardew Valley Fair. So I made sure to bring a load of rare items to display in the Grange display. I thought my display looks pretty good, and so did Mayor Lewis, and I managed to win first prize. Of course, I used all of my tokens on the quick spins on the wheel. I managed to get enough to buy everything I wanted, the rare crow, prize ticket, and a bunch of hay. In the evening, I collected yet another batch of ancient fruit wine, before seeing the next morning I had finally reached the 2 million gold mark, which meant I could finally buy myself the return scepter. And at Robin's, I spent a crazy amount of time trying to lay out where I wanted everything to go, plus a new fish pond on top of that, plus obelisks, plus a golden clock. And let's just enjoy the struggles. Eventually I came to this layout, which I think works quite well. I can still access the farm cave and the northern area of the map. Also, I hadn't had to destroy any buildings, which is always a plus. But as we still need to build 4 obelisks and a golden clock, I don't think certain buildings will be able to survive much longer. At Mr. Key's walnut room, I picked up Danger in the Deep since it would give me the most key gems. I chose to actually design the farm properly today, with some brick paths. Even though I don't have a lot of good decorations right now, I feel it looked pretty nice in the end. Day 186, I began making more crafting recipes, working towards that 100% perfection. On the island, I gave any ancient fruit plants that didn't have speed grow, and towards the end of the 200 days, I will have to wait until they all sync up, which would definitely dampen my money making, but would make things much easier going into 300 days. If you all want that, of course. The rest of the day was spent using staircases to reach floor 120 and complete Danger in the Deep, collecting 50 more key gems. Day 187, I had had enough of the lack of basic resources, such as stone and iron, so I used a magic rock candy to do another Skull Caverns run. This time more focused on iridium and iron ore, rather than getting down as far as possible. Which is quite hypocritical, because I made it all the way down to floor 200, collected 7 prismatic shards, 500 iridium ore, 300 iron ore, rain totems, and so much more, turning out to be an incredible run. Day 188, I chose to spend the key gems buying a few more crafting recipes, which is quite boring to do so, but I would need to buy and craft all of them before the end of the series anyway. I also checked out the perfection tracker to see I was at 58%, which was such an improvement compared to the 28% earlier in the 200 days. The rest of the day was spent inside the kitchen making a bunch more cooking recipes, and in the evening me and Emily decided to spend the night in the secret woods, which was super nice. The bear being the best wingman in the world, of course. 189, I'm waiting outside Robin's to give her a birthday gift, of course completely forgetting that I have the key to the town and I could go into her house whenever I wanted. Back on the island farm, I made up a load more deluxe speed grow to cover the remainder of the ancient fruits, because for some reason a lot of them don't have it. Since I had the casks laying around in the chest, I chose to place them back in the basement and filled them with some gold quality cheese and goat's cheese, both for good energy and also a bit more gold. Day 190 marks the final 10 days of the 200 days on Tiny Farm, and we choose the extended family quest at Mr. Key since, well, I can't play Junimo Kart to save my life. Although, since I really wanted to get to the Ginger Island obelisk before the end of the 200 days, I decided to do some Legend 2 fishing, as I wasn't sure many more batches of ancient fruit wine would be enough. In the end, it was one of the worst bits of Legend 2 fishing I have probably ever done, coming away with exactly 0 Legend 2s. So that definitely wasn't worth the time. To make myself feel a little bit better, I did have a small batch of ancient fruit wine to ship off, and made another 100,000 gold. I gave my fish pond a diamond this morning to continue towards the sturgeon roe I still needed into caviar. I did try once to catch Legend 2s again, but my luck was just absolutely awful, so I decided to head to the volcano and catch lava eels instead. And working towards that 1 million gold needed for the Ginger Island Warp Obelisk, I spent day 191 and day 192 fishing lava eels. I did make sure to head back in the afternoon on day 192 to give George a birthday gift, and also buy the mermaid's pendant, and asked Emily to marry me. What was great is she said yes, and the wedding will be in a few days. I couldn't get too excited however, as the remainder of the day was spent back at the volcano doing even more lava eel fishing. After selling all of the fish, the next morning I awoke to 720,000 gold, which combined with some other items, should be enough to get myself the island obelisk before the end of the video. I also made sure to do the head count on all of the rare crows I had to find out which ones I was still missing, and finding out I'm only missing 2. One was sold by the dwarf, and the other one was purchased at Spirit's Eve. In the afternoon, I had another batch of ancient fruit wine, which should mean tomorrow I'll be able to afford that obelisk. I was eager the next morning to head straight to the wizard's tower in order to build the obelisk for 1 million gold, 10 iridium bars, 10 bananas, and 10 dragon teeth. For now, I could place it right here, but soon we're going to have to consider destroying a building or 2. I really do need to start working on friendships if we were going to hit perfection in the next 300 days. So I spent time collecting some love gifts today, and then handing them all out. Day 195 was spent giving more gifts, although since I couldn't access the town today because it was Spirit's Eve, it was much tougher to complete. So instead, I spent it working in the kitchen on a lot more cooking. Whilst I was on the island, I chose to unlock the recipe for the banana pudding from the island trailer, so I don't forget. In the evening, I had the shock of the series. Spirit's Eve was tonight, and I needed 5,000 gold to buy the rare crow. And if I don't, I would have to wait until next year. But not just that, it would actually go past the 300 days mark, meaning I would have to go into 400 days just to buy it. So I really had to find a way to make gold before the end of the day today. But then it came to me. The trash can. Since I had an iridium trash can, I could trash items and make gold from it. I never thought the trash can would save my run like this. What was even more shocking is I had also forgot to buy the recipe for the jack-o'-lantern for 2,000 gold, but thankfully I trashed more than I needed to do, so I could afford them both. That was a close one. Thank you, trash can. But after the struggles, I made my way through the maze, collected my prize ticket, and went home happy. Day 196 was the day of mine and Emily's wedding, which was super cool, and I could just see the tears falling out of Clint's eyes. Luckily, after getting the final rare crow yesterday, I got the deluxe scarecrow recipe in the mail, and I handed Harvey a coffee. The rest of the day was spent farming iron on the frozen levels of the mines. Day 197 marks the official start of the second winter on Tiny Farm, and there is only a few days left. But what made it even better was that I saw that the caviar was ready inside the preserve jar for the shipping collection. Winter 1 is Krobus' birthday, so I handed him a iridium quality horseradish, which upped him to max hearts, ready for a 300 days roommate. The weekly key quest was 4 precious stones, and so in the evening, I prepared my inventory, ready for a big dive into the skull caverns tomorrow. Day 198, I did that exact dive into the skull caverns, managing to get 3 prismatic shards, and I still needed 1, but right on the strike of 2 AM, I luckily found the final one to complete the key quest. Day 199, I warped right over to the island to drop off the 4 prismatic shards to get a bunch more key gems, which went pretty much instantly on the bluegrass recipe. What was even better was my ducks had finally produced a duck feather, which was the last item I needed to complete the shipping collection. To set me up nicely going into 300 days, I chopped all of the trees in the Cindersap forest and then in the quarry. And here we are, day 200. And overnight I did get yet another owl statue, and since I had enough iridium bars, I chose to sell some at Clint's to put me on exactly 500,000 gold. The reason I did this was so I could build a second obelisk, the beach obelisk. But ultimately, this is it, the end of the 200 days on Tiny Farm. Of course, we're back on Winter 5, or day 201, but despite our tiny farm, we have a lot to do before the end of the series, and such limited space to do it. The ultimate goal is obviously to achieve perfection, building the remaining 2 obelisks, working on the friendship, and then eventually the golden clock, which will set us back around 12 million gold. By swinging round to the wizard's tower to hand him an iridium bar to complete a quick quest. Of course, I did mention we need to work on friendships, and by the look of them, they're gonna need some work. I purchased myself another rabbit, mainly for the rabbit's feet, which work as great gifts for NPCs. Thankfully, courtesy of the to-do list mod, we are able to work on lots of different tasks at once, whilst not getting overwhelmed. And there's no better place to see our progress towards perfection than Mr. Key's walnut room. We're at 65% on the tracker, it wasn't too bad. We managed to ship all produce, catch all fish, and have nearly made every single crafting recipe. 77% on cooking recipes is not awful, since most of the remaining ones are locked behind friendships, which at 17%, we're gonna need to move fast on. I had a huge batch of fibre ready to collect, which is always useful in crafting, but more importantly, a large batch of ancient fruit was ready to turn into ancient fruit wine. Of course, over the final 100 days, we'll be kegging a lot of wine, especially to afford the remaining obelisk and obviously the golden clock. And because of all this fibre, I could make the bluegrass starter and deluxe scarecrow. Crafting recipe I was missing was the deluxe worm bin, but since I didn't have any moss, and it was winter, I'm pretty certain there's no way to get it yet, which means we're going to have to wait until the new year to make one. I did try and deconstruct a mushroom log just in case it would give me some moss, but annoyingly it only gives me the hardwood back. In the quest to complete every crafting recipe, I needed a single piece of marble, and only a few geodes later, I managed to get a piece. That allowed me to make the marble brazier, followed by the oil of garlic, jack-o'-lantern, tent kit, rain totem and drum block, leaving only the deluxe worm bin and potentially 1 or 2 more I might have missed. The next morning, I gave some pickles to my fish pond, although I don't have plans on keeping the fish pond too much longer since we're going to need the space very quickly. Winter 7 is Caroline's birthday, and I gave her a summer spangle upping her to 7 hearts. At Marnie's, I filled my coop up with as many rabbits as I could fit in, for rabbit's feet of course. Since it was a Sunday, I could take a bunch of jays to the desert trader for staircases. Staircases will be more important than it seems to get loads of. Since we'll be doing a lot of Mr. Key's quests in this final 100 days, we'll need as many staircases as we can. It's the Festival of Ice today, but before we went there, I headed over to Ginger Island to harvest a large batch of ancient fruits that I did choose to leave for a few days to allow for them all to sync up. Whilst here, I walked past my Fairy Rose honey farm that I pretty much forgot about. 21 pieces of Fairy Rose honey don't sell for a lot, but will be great for a passive income over the final 100 days, and I do have plans to expand it later. In Mr. Key's walnut room, I chose Key's crop, mainly for the 100 key gems you get as a reward. And why not challenge ourselves before the end of the series? Of course, this is regarded as the most difficult key quest in the entire game, and considering we have no space to grow them on the farm, we will have only Ginger Island to plant them. And as you know, it's covered in ancient fruits, with only a small area spare. Now, this is going to be a big challenge to start the 300 days. Before I began the hunt for key beans, I could fill up the keg shed with more ancient fruits, but for now though, I did attend the Festival of Ice, since it would be the final opportunity to do so in the Tiny Farm series. It's not particularly exciting festival, but we did manage to win the fishing competition and come away with some nice prizes. Day 205, I'm straight down to the beach to use a treasure totem to get some key beans, although that wasn't the best method, so I headed to the dig site on Ginger Island and came away with 7 in total that I planted right away with some deluxe speed grow. I was then to chop a bunch of trees down in the railroad to get 7 more too, but before planting them, I chose to spend 10,000 gold to change my farming profession overnight, which I'll get into soon, and after chopping a few more stumps and trees, I planted 16 more key beans. That night, I decided to change my farming profession. I still chose tiller, but instead of choosing artisan, I chose agriculturalist, which will make crops grow 10% faster, and luckily with the key fruits, it will make them grow in only 2 days, making it much more likely we're able to finish this key quest. At Marnie's, I bought a bunch more hay to add to the silo to continue feeding my animals, and I added 1 more ostrich egg to the incubator. To try and get even more key beans, I opened up all of my remaining geodes, but only came away with 6 more in total. In the evening, I collected a batch of fairy roses in my indoor garden and planted some random seeds in the place. Day 207, I had a batch of iridium quality cheese to collect in the casks in the basement, which do give me a little bit more gold, but I do plan on filling the basement with kegs later on. But for now it works just fine. Yet more chopping for key beans, this time on Ginger Island, and I did come away with a bunch more that I did not hesitate to plant. In the evening, I was back in the kitchen to make a few more cooking recipes to check off for perfection. The first batch of key fruits were ready to harvest today, giving me 32 in total. The best strategy to complete this quest is to grow them and then use a seed maker to get even more key beans, until eventually you have an entire farm filled with them. But since we don't have barely any room, it's going to take me a little bit longer to complete. After harvesting 32 key fruits, I came away with 57 key beans, which wasn't a great conversion, but allowed me to replant them straight away and get one step closer to completing this annoying quest. Yet another thing I do want to complete before the end of the series is the Good Neighbours achievement. This week I had to donate 3 topazes and 2 sea urchins. Day 209 started in the mines to get enough earth crystals to build myself the earth obelisk, since overnight I did reach the 500,000 gold mark. Combined with 10 iridium bars, I could squeeze in the earth obelisk right here, although we are gonna need to demolish something soon, because we still need one more obelisk and a golden clock. But like most days, we could head to the island and collect a load more key fruits that I could turn into even more key beans. I swung by the beach late on to hand Willie a lingcod to complete a quick quest, before caving in and handing out a few gifts to some low heart NPCs. Day 210, I'm back to gift giving and to take Pierre to the movie theatre to boost some friendship with him. Before the movie, I played a few times on the crane game to get some nice plants and a Junimo plush to decorate the house. The film was of course great and Pierre enjoyed it. I will try and take advantage of this movie theatre to work on some of the trickier friendships, like Pierre, who only has 2 loved gifts. The decorations find themselves a nice place in the house, and I hope to decorate the entire house before the end of the 300 days. Day 211, we had another batch of ancient fruit wine ready to collect, and of course all going towards the desert obelisk. On Ginger Island, we had yet more key fruits to collect, and also harvest the ancient fruits too. A large part of the morning was spent turning over 80 key fruits into beans to replant, even expanding it further with 1 more iridium sprinkler. After a huge day of kegging, we could head down to the night market for the first day, and the travelling cart stall, I bought some roasted hazelnuts, since they are a loved gift for Kent. The weekly key quest I chose was the Skull Cavern Invasion, and since we have a huge supply of staircases, we could time-consumingly head down all the way to floor 100 and collect the key gems. Day 213, I chose to do a full renovation on the farm, which started by heading to the Wizard's Tower to demolish the fish pond, since we had no use for it anymore, and also demolish the silo, since someone in the comments let me know that I could just place a chest and fill it with hay, with the only downside being the automatic feeding. But to be honest, we did need the space. Whilst I was here, I chose to move things around a bit. I didn't like the design I ended up with, but for now it would give me enough space to build the desert obelisk when I get enough gold. Instead of saving for the obelisk, I spent a lot of gold expanding the house, which as you know is a great way for us to create more room, since well, our farm is tiny. I did take this opportunity to buy the furniture catalogue and then the wallpaper catalogue to decorate the home some more. After some time, I finished up the new bedroom, finally moving the bed from the middle of the kitchen. I used the attic space to move my indoor garden into, which I felt works really well. I'll plant some coffee beans in here, and once they grow, I'll fill the entire room with them. This was how the child's room looked in the end, although unfortunately, I do plan on divorcing Emily very soon to get a Krobus roommate, and we cannot have kids. The final room I finished was the kitchen, and a tiny area for the fish tank to go, before heading down to the night market to buy some plants and a very expensive piano. I received the final star drop from Emily, and was back to decorating the house again. Being in the decorative mood, I had completely forgotten about the key fruits on the island, so I headed straight there to spend a very long time turning the fruits back into more beans. Since I was really worried about not completing it in time, I expanded it with even more sprinklers, putting some pressure nozzles on them to grow even more key beans. Considering we have only 10 more days to ship 500 of them, I was going to need every last key fruit I can plant. Late into the evening, I had finished planting and could move my crystallariums to the top room to duplicate even more jades than before. Gus had requested a coconut, which I gave him early the next morning, before trading off some books at the bookseller for some monster musk. To complete the raccoon bundle this week, I needed a rusty spoon, which was definitely an awkward item to get. The best way I thought to get one was till for it in the mines, although I didn't have much luck in the end. With not much time left in the season, what better way to spend it than a big trip to the Skull Caverns? and by the end of the session, I came away with over 300 pieces of iridium and unexpectedly 39 key beans. Day 217 was the second to last Sunday of the season, and was one more opportunity to trade some jades for staircases at the desert, before once again heading back to the island and planting even more key fruits. At this point, I had so many key fruits, I had enough to refill the old key beans. That meant I could start shipping the extra ones, adding another 111 to the collection. It was definitely going to be tight, but I think at this pace, we would just make 500 key fruit shipped before the end of the season. One of the crafting recipes I had forgotten about was the desert warp totem, so I headed back there to trade 10 iridium bars for the recipe, and then finally make myself one. In my mind, the final recipe was the deluxe worm bin, needing some moss to make. And to make sure of that fact, I went back through every single recipe to check whether I had made it or not. But for the final event of the day, I chose to spend 50,000 gold at Mayor Lewis's house to file for divorce in order to get Krobus as a roommate. Being the new week meant even more ancient fruit wine to collect, which I'll try not to mention that often, as a large portion of the 300 days will be harvesting and kegging. The final key quest of the season was Skull Cavern Invasion, and checking out the shop made me realise I was still missing a few recipes to buy from here, such as the Hopper and Magic Bait recipe. After finishing kegging, I traded 200 pieces of Void Essence at the Desert Trader in order to get the Void Pendant, which you can give Krobus in order to get him to move in, which is super exciting. Since I had a load of ancient fruits still left over, but every keg was full, I made up some more and placed them inside the only available space I had, the kitchen, to make even more gold. I'll also be trying to process as much animal products as possible to maximise my profits in this 300 days, since getting to 10 million gold is not an easy task. And you will see whether we manage to get one before the end of the series. I did mention I was planning to expand my Fairy Rose honey farm, and we will slowly be adding more beehives over the course of the 300 days too. Day 219 is spent collecting more animal produce and then processing it, and similar to ancient fruit and wine collecting, I'll try not to keep mentioning it, as it will get very repetitive, but do remember, I'm doing this every single day. Winter 23 is Leah's birthday, and I made sure to hand her a birthday gift which upped her to maximum hearts, and later received a nice statue from her on my return to the farm. I took some time to staircase my way down to floor 100 in the Skull Caverns to complete Skull Cavern Invasion from Mr. Key once again. But of course, we cannot forget to harvest and replant even more key fruits, this time allowing me to ship another 80. And later I picked up the Hopper recipe and Magic Bait recipe from the store to make back home. Funnily enough, we were up to 78% of perfection, although the remaining tasks were some of the hardest, Great Friends and the Golden Clock. Day 220, I headed down to the beach to catch the eel with some magic bait in order to make the fried eel cooking recipe. Day 221 is of course the Feast of the Winter Star, and I had finally remembered to change my profession back to artisan. That meant I'd been losing so much gold from selling my wine and animal products over the last week or so, to which I'm sure you're all stressing out the screen about. Sorry, I have a bad memory. But before we could enjoy the festivities, I had to return to the island to collect and plant more key fruits, giving me another 90 to ship off. My secret gift giver this year was Hayley, so I made sure to give her an iridium quality coconut, which she loved, and mine was Harvey, who gave me a purple mushroom. Thanks, Harvey. Thanks. Our coffee plants in the attic were ready to collect today. That meant I could expand it even more. I didn't really need the coffee, it was more for the aesthetics. It's Clint's birthday today, so I managed to give him an aquamarine. In order for us to get 100% great friends before the end of the 300 days, birthdays are going to be essential. Day 223 was the final day I could collect key fruits, since there wouldn't be enough time to grow any more. But luckily, it was very close, but I had just enough to complete the quest. It was certainly a great challenge to start the 300 days on, but my gosh did we call it close. But before I slept, I did remember to head down to the bear statue and pay for a profession change. And that very night, I changed my farming profession back to artisan. Day 224 was the final day of the winter season, and would be the final winter of the Tiny Farm series, which is always a shame, but the series must go on. After collecting another batch of Fairy Rose honey, I headed to Mr. Key's walnut room to splash some key gems on a few items, since I'd just received 100 from the key fruit quest. One of those items was a new bed, which in my opinion is worth every key gem. But since there wasn't much we could do in winter, that meant I could head to bed early and end the second year on Tiny Farm. And let's bring on the new year. Before that, we are visited by the ghost of our grandfather, to unfortunately not apologise for giving us such a tiny farm, but instead to evaluate our progress, and he couldn't be more proud of us, which was very touching, and he let me know that the future of Tiny Farm was now in my hands. There was no time to worry about that right now, we still had an obelisk and a golden clock to build. As I walked out the house, I received some candles on Grandpa's shrine, but since we're here on Tiny Farm, the shrine was up out of our reach, which was super annoying and meant we couldn't get the Statue of Perfection. Selling a bunch of wine to Pierre's put me on over 1 million gold, which was enough to build the fourth and final obelisk, the desert one. That left only a few crafting recipes, a few cooking recipes, great friends, and the golden clock until we had reached perfection. The key quest to complete this week was Skull Cavern Invasion once again, so I used up another 100 staircases to complete it. I then spent the next 20 real-life minutes trying to find a new design on the farm, but the lack of space was really becoming apparent now, so I just got mad and headed to bed with a messy layout. I'm to Clint's the next morning to open a few artifact troves to try and get that rusty spoon I still need for the raccoons bundle, but of course I don't manage to get one. Determined to get a good farm layout this time, I chose to tear down all of the fences and paths to make way for a brand new one. Before I started moving things around, I filled my inventory with loads of loved gifts to start getting some great friends on the board. The reason I did this now was I was just extremely worried about not having enough time. Since Kent's birthday was coming up, I took advantage of the key seasoning, which can allow for better quality cooking, and so I could make a gold quality roasted hazelnuts to give him soon. The next day is spent handing out gifts, which is super boring for me, but for you guys is summarised in a few quick seconds. Day 228, I received a few more cooking recipes in the mail after reaching enough hearts with a few new NPCs. Spring 4 is Kent's birthday, and some gold quality roasted hazelnuts was enough to take him close to max friendship. But sadly yet again, the entire day was spent handing out even more gifts. For no reason at all, I decided to sleep over days 229 and 230, and spent the entirety of day 231 giving out new gifts since the limit reset on Sundays. Day 232, we can head back to the island to collect another batch of ancient fruits, which I can turn into more ancient fruit wine. Instead of filling the kegs inside the shed this time, I thought to save on the space, clear out the shed, and move it elsewhere, so we can finally demolish that shed. And so the day was spent moving all of the kegs to the basement layer, and the remaining ones in the top room of the house. I swung by the wizard's tower later, and I eventually came to this design, which in my opinion is the best one we've had in the entire series, leaving plenty of room for a golden clock to go. One of the problems, which wasn't really a problem, is that the obelisks were blocking access to the farm cave, but since I don't use it at all, it didn't really make a difference to me. And honestly, the obelisks all look quite great on this side of the farm. Day 233, I did some more decorating, although with the animals roaming around, it was much more difficult to do so. Spring 10th is Vincent's birthday, so I made sure to give him a gold quality pink cake, courtesy of the key seasoning, upping him to 9 out of 10 hearts. I was then straight back to decorating, this time making a nice fence area for the barn animals, and finally displaying my Stardew Valley hero trophy. My trees had finally had time to generate enough moss that I needed for a crafting recipe, and I was straight back into the mines to till for the rusty spoon to still complete the raccoon bundle. But this time, I did manage to get one. And that, plus some coral, was enough to complete yet another quest, getting some carrot seeds as a reward. In the evening, I did try and find some way to get out of bounds to get towards Grandpa's shrine, and using the scythe, I was able to get past the bounds and get onto the ridged area, although the trees up here were just a texture, but the shrine could actually be interacted with, and just like that, we have the Statue of Perfection. I did try and roam a bit more out of bounds to try and maybe get into the greenhouse, although I didn't really want to risk breaking the game. Day 235, I could make what I thought was the final crafting recipe, the deluxe worm bin, after getting some moss yesterday, but I didn't get the crafting achievement. I went through all of the crafting recipes once again, and it seemed like I wasn't missing one, but according to the perfection tracker, I was on 99%. However, it turns out I hadn't gotten the tea sapling recipe yet, which was super strange, so I swung round Caroline's tea room, watched the cutscene, and that would mean tomorrow I could get the recipe and finally craft every single one. Another friendship I needed to work on was Jazz, in order to get the final wallet item, the Spring Onion Mastery, and since her favourite movie was on at the moment at the theatre, I chose to watch a movie together. Day 236, we officially ticked off another perfection quest, with the tea sapling giving us the Craft Master achievement. Perfection is still a long way away, but this puts us one step closer, the day of the Egg Festival, and Krobus had decided to do some decorating of his own, which is cool, I guess. The final Egg Festival of the Tiny Farm series, what better way to enjoy it than winning it once again. Day 238 was Hayley's birthday, and one more gift was enough to boost her to 8 out of 8 hearts. One of the Pelican Town special orders this week was Pierre's Prime Produce, so I bought a bunch of parsnips and planted them on the island to hopefully complete it with some ease. At the moment, we're up to 1.3 million gold, which is very far from 10 million, and with only around 60 days left, we're going to need to work on a few more money-making methods to get the golden clock. Spring 15 is the start of the annual desert festival, and what better way to celebrate than a big Skull Caverns dive to get as many calico eggs as possible. Before we dove in, I couldn't forget to get some food from the truck and grab a quest from Marlon. I was hoping to get an egg rating of at least 55, but since we started very late into the day, we could only get 40 in the end. With all the calico eggs, I traded them for some more mega bombs to hopefully help us reach an egg rating of over 55 tomorrow. We waste no time to return to the Skull Caverns, this time with a magic rock candy in hand. And since this is the final video of the series, I decided to aim for the highest egg rating I've ever gotten. And in the end, I came away with an egg rating of 80, which was pretty crazy, and I had over 1,000 calico eggs to spend. Day 241, the final Skull Caverns run of the festival, and this time I made sure to get an egg rating of at least 55 to get another magic rock candy from Gil. But just like that, the desert festival was finally over, and it was the final time we'd be here in the Tiny Farm series. The next raccoon quest wanted 3 ghost fish and 3 magma geodes. That took me straight to the lava levels to go get them. After dropping them off, I received another Star Drop Tea, which is a super useful item to boost low level friendships. On Ginger Island, I made sure to manually harvest all of the parsnips to complete Pierre's Prime Produce special order. I did mention that I was going to need way more than ancient fruit wine to afford the golden clock, so I planted a fresh batch of starfruit seeds to keg later. I ventured to get the final power book I'd missed to trade 10 diamonds for the Diamond Hunter book. After reading, it gave me the well-read achievement, leaving only the Spring Onion Mastery to complete the wallet. Day 244, I was giving out more gifts, and one thing I didn't realise was after divorcing Emily caused me to reset back to 0 hearts. So that's another friendship I'm going to have to deal with again. Although I did remember a while ago to swing round the witch's swamp to allow her to forget her memory so I could actually give her gifts again, and not just be mad at me the entire time. Since the amount of gifts I could give reset today, I was out again handing out even more. On the island, I made some more room to place some kegs, as we're going to need every ounce of gold we can get. Day 246 was another ancient fruit day, but after taking Jazz to the movies one more time, it was enough to see the cutscene with her and Vincent, and eventually get the Spring Onion Mastery, which is always such a waste of time wallet item in my opinion. At Mr. Key's Walnut Room, I bought a Galaxy Soul and checked our progress in the tracker. It's not too bad, but it could be better. The main issue of course being the golden clock. Before I could leave, I was in a cutscene with Leo, Linus and Willie, where they invited him to come live back in Pelican Town, rather than here on his own. He of course was a bit hesitant to begin with, but decided he was coming with us. All I did on day 247 was feed the animals and process the drops. Day 248 is also Spring 24, the day of the flower dance, and since Krobus doesn't attend, I chose to dance with Alex instead. And despite my terrible dancing skills, it was a great time and would be the final one of the series. Decorator Tom was back on day 249. This time I chose to decorate the mountain path for no good reason, and by the end of the day, this was the design I finished on. And honestly, I love it. On day 250, I added Honey Farm to my to-do list, and in the quarry, I took a bunch of heavy tappers off my mystic trees and placed them onto maple ones. This was so I could get maple syrup, which I need to make more beehives. The new raccoon quest required some corn juice and pickled radish that I used some fairy dust to get quickly and complete. Day 251, Krobus was looking very cheeky this morning, saying sometimes he has the urge to be mischievous. I love him. Spring 27 was also Emily's birthday, and since she had been back down to low hearts, I made it a priority to give her a birthday gift. At this point, I decided to dedicate a lot of my time to friendships now, since I was really worried about not having enough time to complete them all. So, for every NPC that wasn't maxed hearts, I gathered love gifts for, and went on a huge gift giving spree. The next day, Shane had sent me one more cooking recipe. I unfortunately spent the day handing out a bunch more gifts though, and later harvesting some starfruit on Ginger Island and replanting them. With a bunch of oak resin from the quarry, I made a load more kegs to fill with starfruit and also ancient fruit. But just like that, the end of spring was here, and we only have 2 more seasons to go, and just under 50 days to achieve perfection. The summer has arrived and we had no time to waste here on Tiny Farm. The first task is a familiar one, with an ancient fruit harvest. I also made the mango sticky rice recipe, leaving only 2 cooking recipes until I had made every single one. After getting a shrimp from my crab pots, I was able to make the tom kha soup, leaving only the strange bun. Yet again I handed out more gifts and took Maru to the movies to boost her friendship too. I And just like that, we had managed to cook every single recipe. Day 254, we expanded the honey farm and handed out yet more gifts, more of the same on day 255. But on days 256, I chose to expand the mushroom log farm in the quarry, since they can actually be quite profitable once you get a lot of them. At the moment, we are up to 3.6 million gold, but with not much time to go, we're going to need to speed up exponentially. Day 257, we had finally completed enough raccoon quests to get the Good Neighbours achievement and watch a very funny cutscene with the entire expanded family. I also chose to ship the vast majority of my items, mainly because I didn't have any use for them anymore, and I would much rather have the gold. I chose to enchant yet another tool. This time I got my axe to Swift, and also the hoe to Swift. This makes the speed of both of them nearly as fast as animation cancelling. Day 258, I had a lot more maple syrup to collect. That meant I could expand the honey farm even more. On the 7th of summer, it was the return of the annual Green Rain event, and if you remember what happened last Green Rain event, you know I'm going to clear out as many fibres as possible. I would mainly need the moss to make more mushroom logs, but the fibre is also useful too. Unfortunately, I didn't get another living hat, but I did manage to collect a large amount of wine from Ginger Island, and then back on the farm. On day 260, we are officially at the halfway point to affording the golden clock, and since I was really low on wood, I chopped down the entire tree farm in the railroad. In the evening, I witnessed Krobus's 14 Heart event with him having a great time with the sea monster at the ocean, which was certainly funny to watch. The very next day, I was to the Skull Caverns to complete Skull Cavern Invasion from Mr. Key, followed by more chores and expanding the honey farm on day 262. The very next day is the Luau Festival, and I made sure to get my hands on a gold quality smoked super cucumber, which is a love gift in the soup, that would give a small friendship bonus to everyone in the valley. There wasn't much to mention on days 264, as it was spent giving out more gifts. I did manage to receive the parrot trinket, and on day 265, I took some monster musk onto the dangerous mines, farm as much gold as possible from the dust sprites. I'm not sure how much gold I made from doing this, but it didn't really feel like a lot, so I don't think it was worth spending an entire day on. We are then off to the volcano to get enough cinder shards to put one more galaxy soul on my galaxy sword, although each one requires 20 cinder shards. And we're going to need a lot more before we can turn it into the infinity sword. Before I left the island, I bought the final galaxy soul I needed to eventually do that. But by day 267, we are up to 6 million gold, with many, many more ancient fruits still to come. Although, will there be enough time? We're still handing out gifts the very next day, but we're very close to maxing out every single one. One more trip to the volcano gave me enough cinder shards to put the final 2 galaxy souls onto the galaxy sword to make myself the infinity blade, which was pretty unnecessary to do since I already had the overpowered gavel, but it was still something I wanted to achieve before the end of the 300 days anyway. Yet more gifting. Days 270 to 273 is spent doing the same chores over and over again, but by day 274 we were up to 7.6 million gold with around 26 days to go. I think we will have enough time to get the golden clock, hopefully. The next 2 days is more grinding, and also watching a nice cutscene with Leo, seeing how he's enjoying life here in Pelican Town. Skipping to day 280, it was the final day of the summer season, and of course we're still grinding towards that 10 million gold. Over the past few days, we managed to get up to 8.2 million gold, now having kegs pretty much everywhere on the farm and on the island. But of course, one thing we cannot miss for the final time in the series is the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies, and what is customary for every single Stardew Valley playthrough. Let's just sit here and enjoy it. Here we are in the fall season, and also the final 20 days of the Tiny Farm series. Day 281 began by clearing out debris on the farm for the very last time, as by the end of the season, we should have the golden clock. Days 282, we were closing in on that final 1 million gold, and it turns out we'll be calling this much closer than I had expected. The next 5 days are filled with mindless gold grinding through wine, honey, and animal products. But finally, on day 288, we had reached the 10 million gold mark and meant we could head right over to the Wizard's Tower and build ourselves the golden clock. And wow, it was very much worth it. And somehow, I can find a nice place for it on Tiny Farm. The last thing we had to do now to achieve perfection were friendships, and we only have Sandy and Caroline to finish. And on days 289, we could finally hand Sandy a gift to get her to max friendship, and would mean we have achieved perfection here on Tiny Farm. The next morning, I received a message that I feel in my heart, somewhere, somehow, Grandpa is beaming with pride, and the legacy of Tiny Farm is eternal. On my doorstep, I saw a flock of parrots fly over, and what better time than to take my horse up to the summit. Unfortunately, having Krobus as a roommate means he doesn't join you on the summit, but it was still nice to speak to Mayor Lewis on our impact on the community, and I was just happy to help out the economy despite my tiny farm. And there he is! What are you doing up there? Honestly, achieving perfection on Tiny Farm was a huge achievement for me. And sure, after gaining access to Ginger Island, the growing crops aspect was made much easier, but it was certainly not easy. We had our issues with buildings, space, and even having to demolish plenty of things over the course of 300 days. Then I just watched the credits roll. And even though it does feel like the end, there is still 10 days left of the series. And honestly, now we can take things nice and slow from now on. And there are a few things I still wanted to do before the end. Day 291, I was straight to Robin to ask her to build Pam a house for 950 wood and 500,000 gold. The very next day, I headed over to Marnie's to buy a few sheep, for no real reason at all. But whilst I was here, I could buy an expensive golden egg to get my very own golden chicken. The rest of the day was spent doing a little bit more decorating before the end of the series. Day 293, I removed a bunch of cakes from my western room in order to start a hat collection. I started by heading down to the Hat Mouse to buy a bunch more, and this was how the collection looked right now. Finding a few more random things to do, I took an ancient doll down to floor 100 in the mines to get the faraway stone that I could take to the Wizard's Tower to get the Meowmere sword. I spent the very next day collecting more hats and shipping a lot of food, skipping to day 296, and it was the day of the Stardew Valley Fair, and there was no real reason why I shouldn't attend it, and honestly, my Grange display was by far the best, and Mayor Lewis also thought so, and I won first prize. Day 297, we saw Pam's new house fully finished, and it looks great compared to the old one, and to say she was happy would be an understatement. At Robin's, I chose to spend 200,000 gold to buy the shortcuts upgrade, which is scheduled to be finished on day 300. Day 298, I'm back down to the Hat Mouse to buy even more hats to expand the collection, which looked pretty awesome in the end. And skipping to day 300, we have officially made it to the end of the Tiny Farm series, and for the final task of the day, I chose to give Krobus lots of hugs goodbye. And that was it. And there we have it, 300 days on Tiny Farm. What started as a struggle turned into one of the most fun videos I've ever tried. And sure, as soon as we made it to Ginger Island, our crop problem did become much easier, but it was still a huge challenge to complete. If you made it all the way to the end, I genuinely appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed. If this is the first time you're seeing the Tiny Farm Challenge, there are plenty more ideas like it on the channel, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future ones. But just like that, our adventure on Tiny Farm is complete. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later.